What's up, chat? How's it going, everybody? It's Eldar Day. Well, it's Friday. We're getting elfy, I guess, today. How's it going? Yeah, we got the full drop of the Eldar Codex last night. If you are following me on Twitch, shout out to all my amazing people over on Twitch. But if you are cool like all those people, and you watch me on Twitch, then we actually went through a lot of this Codex on stream after our game yesterday, which was a roller coaster ride of a game, absolutely wild. But we talked quite a bit about Eldar, and today we're going to go through the entire Codex. We're going to talk about the changes. We're going to talk about the cool stuff. We kind of like broke down a lot of the and sussed out a lot of the combos last night. So I am actually prepared for this faction this time. I know what's up. I'm sure I won't get any rules wrong. I definitely won't wildly misread any abilities on datasheets. No way. There's no way that happens. Absolutely, absolutely not. First of all, this faction is fucking sick. This codex is cool as hell. I think that none of the detachments are duds. They all have really cool stuff going on with them. Some of them I definitely think are like more or less powerful based on the units that they support. But I would not show up to somebody playing one of them and being like, "Oh, you're playing that? Like, what are you doing with your life?" I think any of them can be played pretty reasonably. The datasheets are really cool. They have internal synergies that are sick. There's a lot of like really powerful characters and combinations and stuff. I'm a little worried, of course, that some of this stuff is overtuned. However, I will preface this right now. There is a points value page in this document, but as we have seen time and time again, those are very rarely correct because the Munitorum will come out with different values. So we will not be considering this with points values in mind. And of course, that opens us for the opportunity for this army to be very well balanced, assuming that the points are correct. If this is constructed as a low model count, very elite army that has some really cool abilities, it's going to be awesome. If it comes out and the points are way too low, and there are some units that are just silly good, obviously it'll be problematic. But it is Eldar, so we can come in expecting it to be unspeakably broken on release, because that's how Eldar releases go, and then we'll see how they do in the update. So it all depends on the points. So, yeah, I guess I'm not really going to prognosticate too much on how powerful the army will be holistically, because we have no idea how many points things cost. However, I will talk about how absolutely rad the construction of the Codex is, for sure. Rana Dondra on Saturday. Gonna be too cheap for sure. Let's see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes, chat. All right, should we dive in? Let's talk about this stuff. The two rules for free are nuts. Every detachment has +2 move, get shot, and fade away. Yeah, I mean, for sure. The army ability is really, really good. But I do think one thing that's really cool there is that a lot of this army is interactive, right? So a lot of it's like, hey, we're good at getting into melee with you. And then we fight. Is basically how it goes. And a lot of it requires your opponent to answer you in order for it to work. And so one way that we can beat things like fade back and stuff is by, for example, just one-shotting their units. If you do that, they can't do anything about it. However, there is some other counterplay inside the faction that we'll certainly talk about.
Ryan G
Holy shit!
through Super Chat.
$50, dude!
When God
What?
Codex comes
Thank
out,
you.
I challenge you to win the game with 27 heavy weapon teams, 6 field ordnance batteries, 3 Krieg field weapons, and 2 to 3 Aegis defense line.
In a bridgehead or artillery detachment, my choice of other units, Ryan G. Challenge accepted. We will, I believe that we can just play that, right? Because the Munitorum's updated. We are allowing new guard in events because they're the current values in the Munitorum Field Manual. So that's the next list we're playing, I guess. 27 heavy weapon teams, 6 field ordnance batteries, 3 Krieg field weapons. So like the field gun, like the big artillery piece. Oh shit. Oh my god. All right. We'll give it a go. We'll give it a go. Brian Scanlon, holy shit, dude.
Brian Scanlon donated $20 through Super Chat. Love your content, man.
Oh my god, you guys are so generous today. Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you, dude. I love you. I love you. Wow. We're starting strong today. Hot diggity Dan. Will they pop a Falcon? That's important. That's the important thing. The Aegis defense line gives all the artillery a 4+ invuln. Let's go. GW says Eldar Codex would be better nerf sisters. Yeah, let's fucking go, dude. Hot damn, guys. Those super chats are huge, so thank you so much. Let's talk about some Eldar, huh? We'll dive into 27 heavy weapon teams in a sec. I'm excited about some frickin' Eldar. Let's go. So yeah, we've talked about the army rule in the past. We did our preview stream yesterday, and we discussed the other day, whenever we did it, Wednesday maybe. And we discussed the army rule then. However, we have the full thing here. Basically, in a Strike Force game, we'll get 4 battle-focused tokens at the beginning of the battle round. You can use those for these essentially like reactive abilities. The important ones, I guess they're all important. Honestly, like none of these are particularly bad. Swift as the wind, you get +2 to move characteristic models. Move characteristic for models when they normal move, advance, or fall back. Star engines, when you make a normal move, you get D6 +1 additional movement.
Donated $5 through Super Chat. Also, Holy Sweet Baby Jesus Shining Spears.
Holy Sweet Baby Jesus. Yeah, the Shining Spears look great. Yeah, that's a unit that it's like, man, if they are too inexpensive, if they're like sub, I don't know what the correct points value is, like 60 points or model or something, for the Shining Spears, then they're gonna be insane. There's definitely a universe where they're like, oh, it's like an elite biker. They're like 35 points, and you're like, no, that's too cheap. Now everyone has 18. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Those guys look amazing. Literally the perfect weapon profile into almost any defensive profile, which is wild when you think about it. Holy shit. 60 points per model. Listen, when we get to that data sheet, Zato-san, you will see why. Yeah, they got a really good spear on them, those guys. They got really good at poking you. All right. So we Flitting Shadows is pretty valuable as well. We have a lot of light infantry play in this faction. You use it. Basically, all of the timing is great. It's when you're selected to make a normal advance or fallback move, set up on the battlefield, or declares a charge. And setting up on the battlefield is important because it means that you can use this stratagem when, for example, you come out of a transport. And all of these, I believe, are transport-friendly. So they all work like, for example, Swift of this Wind. When you are selected to move, it's not like start of the phase. So even if you're inside a transport, you can dump out of the transport, then use this agile maneuver, then potentially be selected to move, and then use +2 movement. And then so like all of the timing works correctly. The timing in this book is very well thought out, and I appreciate that. Star engines, you get your vehicles go super duper fucking super fast. That's a little problematic. I think we talked a lot about Falcons recently. Falcons look amazing, so being able to push those guys around the table is going to be wild. It is ordinarily normal move though, so you basically get to advance and do stuff. It's a little funny that this doesn't really trigger alongside our new Armored Warhost stuff, but that's okay. Nobody's playing Armored Warhost. It turns out that detachment's really bad, so that's all right. Sudden Strike, you can pile in and consolidate 6 inches instead of 3. Really good if you lowball a charge or you want to do some weird fight phase stuff. Fortunately, we're not going to have too many big units in this faction, I have a sneaking suspicion. So it doesn't seem super likely that we're going to be like doing weird stuff with chaining guys out of a 10-man squad. I think it's going to be a lot of 5-man squads, and you can use these to tie up enemy models. Or to ensure that all of your models get into the fight. That's a super useful one. Opportunity seized when an enemy falls back. An eligible unit from your army that they fell back from can normal move up to d6+1. So you can engage somebody in melee, tie them up, they fall back in order to shoot you. You go opportunity seized, run back behind a wall, and then they have to play around that. And then fade back is the last one, obviously the one that a lot of folks are talking about. After your opponent shoots at you, if you are hit by one of the more of the attacks, you can make a normal move up to d6+1. This is non-Titanic, and I guess the same thing for opportunity seized, but you can also use it on vehicles. And there's no restriction against embarking into transports, so there are a billion ways to out-of-phase embark into transports in this faction, including also the fallback one. So, like, for example... my chat is a little bit in the way here. Let's move over the page real quick. For example, we could opportunity seize back into a transport, or we could fall back into a transport, or we could use a stratagem to go into the transport, and then they shoot the transport, and if they don't one-shot it, the transport runs away and out of line of sight. So, like, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. It's gonna be real strong, chat. Big stronks. All right, let's talk about some detachments real quick, and we'll just go down the line, I think, basically. Warhost is the new Battlehost, essentially. It has a lot of the same, the old stratagems out of Battlehost, but it also looks really broken, so we'll talk about that. First of all, it interacts with agile maneuvers. You gain an additional battle focus token every round. There's also what do you call these? Enhancements. There's also an enhancement for an extra battle focus token every round. So we can play with 6 if we want to, which is kind of nutty. You gain +1 to move for Swift is the wind, and then you can also get +1 to the result for any random agile maneuver. So Swift is the wind is the +2 movement one, so you go to +3, and then any one that you roll a d6 for, so that is opportunity seized, start engines, and fade back. Those all are d6+2 instead of d6+1. So this is incredibly consistent on its battle focus, which is going to be super strong. Phoenix Gem is back. Normal stuff. We talked about Timeless Strategist. That gives you up to 6 battle focus tokens. Gift of Foresight gives you command reroll for free. It's a little weird one. I'm not really sure what we're doing with this one, but it's in there. It is Asuryani only, and I guess it's worth discussing real quick what... We'll get to the keywording when we... I guess we'll talk about the keywording now. Because we have sub-faction keywords in this codex, it's a little bit it's designed a little bit different, but it's Asuryani only, which means that it is only the Craft World Eldar. That's the keyword for Craft World Eldar. And then Psychic Destroyer is +1 damage to psychic weapons. That one's actually really cool. There's a lot of the psychic weapons in the faction are pretty good. So the keywording, it's important to sort of discuss real quick here, just so we can get it out of the way. The Asuryani faction keyword is basically the new Aeldari faction keyword. So Asuryani, Harlequins, Ynnari, and Drukhari are all Aeldari. They all have the Aeldari keyword, the standard keyword. Asuryani is the faction keyword for Craft World Eldar. If you are an Asuryani, you can take Harlequins. And in addition, if you are in the Devoted of Yniad detachment, you can also take you can take Ynnari stuff. So essentially, a lot of the internal synergies for detachments will be baked around whether or not they work on Craft World or one of the other keywords. However, if you play the Devoted Detachment, all of your stuff becomes Ynnari, so all that stuff works on the whole army, although there's some like anti-synergies there that might be a mistake. Who knows? We'll talk about that when we get to the detachment. There are also some army building restrictions on Harlequin units outside. There is a Harlequin-specific detachment. Outside of that detachment, you are restricted on the number of Harlequins you can take. It's not like a proportional restriction. It's just that none of the stuff is battle line, and the like pivotal role guys, all the characters have kind of an epic hero-esque rule where you can only take one of them. So if you are playing Asuryani, you can take Harlequin units, but you are restricted. However, those restrictions fall off if you play in the Harlequin Detachment. So when we're looking at all of these, this stuff all affects Asuryani stuff. So it's not affecting Harlequins, and it's mostly not affecting Harlequins. So the Ynnari stuff is for the Ynnari detachment, which is important to talk about. Yeah, make sure to like the stream. Call my dong the Psychic Destroyer? Jesus. Yeah, so if we like, just to close out that discussion, if we take a look at the Harlequin datasheets, they are faction keyworded Harlequin, so they're not faction keyword Asuryani. They don't have the Asuryani faction keyword, so none of the Asuryani stuff works on them. You're just taking them for bodies. However, they're really good, and there's some synergies that they can do with other with transports and stuff that we'll talk about in a sec. So, and then the Ynnari stuff is Ynnari, so that always has the Ynnari keyword. That's not Asuryani either, unless you are so yeah. That basically this is only the vanilla Craft World stuff, the regular stuff. All right. Let's talk about what we do. We have Lightning Fast Reactions, that's returned. Some other stuff that's returned. Feigned Retreat, fall back, shoot and declare charge, also returned. Blitzing Firepower, I think is new. I don't remember off the top of my head. I guess this was Bladestorm. Bladestorm used to be this one. It gives you 5+ critical hits. It's a little bit different. Or it gives you sustained 1, targeting an enemy within 12, and then if you have sustained 1, you get 5+ critical hits. There's a couple of units in there that have a sustained hits effect, or can gain 1, and then you will, that have a, or can gain sustained hits, and then you're scoring them on a 5. So that's great. There are 3 really important ones though. Fire and Fade has returned, but it is very different now. Make sure it's not cut off here by my chat box. Excuse me. So Fire and Fade is a normal move on infantry, Asuryani infantry only. So it doesn't work on anything. Apparently it doesn't work on Asurmen, but that's because he has it baked in, which I just read, which is very funny. And moves you d6+1. Now this is not a martial or what do you call it? A agile maneuver move, so you don't get the bonus dinch from the detachment ability. But again, it's another thing where you can re-embark into transports. So it doesn't have the clause where you're not allowed to go back into a transport. You're simply not able to charge. But it's a random distance, and it's infantry only. But the cool thing about this is that you're going to be able to like bounce in and out of cover really easily if you can get your unit entirely like 2 inches. Basically, everyone's wholly within 2 inches of the backside of a wall. You can jump out and then ensure that you can jump back behind the wall. Or if they're just standing next to a transport, your transport moved, your unit disembarks, you shoot with them, you pay a CP, fire and fade, and they just go back in the transport automatically. So a lot of cool ways to use this. Obviously, great stratagem. There's nothing too crazy about that, and it's not a end of phase thing, so you can't use it like the old fire and fade where you like run up in the middle and then you shoot with your whole army and then you run away. Next up is the other one is Skyborn Sanctuary. This is kind of a very Drukhari-esque ability. We're very Drukhari-pilled today. End of the fight phase, you can pay a CP, and as your unit from your army can embark within a transport if it's wholly within 6 inches of it. So we have 2 ways to re-embark into transports after they've shot. Importantly, this is the end of any fight phase. It's not your fight phase. It's not your opponent's fight phase. It's any fight phase. So you can, for example, run your unit out into the middle of the table, shoot with them, end of your turn, re-embark them into the transport. Then they shoot the transport. If they don't kill it, the transport fades away back out of line of sight. So you can be like hyper difficult to engage with these stratagems. This stratagem's crazy. It's super good. It's super duper good. All your transports become venoms for a CP basically, which is like kind of wild. Reload the Falcon. Blammo. Mentions aircraft. Oh, that's true, actually. Asuryani infantry excluding aircraft, yeah. I don't believe that there are any infantry aircraft in the game. The last stratagem here, chat, is Webway Tunnel. It's an uppy-downy. If you are wholly within 9 inches of a battlefield edge and you're infantry, you can go into strategic reserves. This is great for flying or stuff that deep strikes because, like warp spiders, swooping hawks, all that stuff has deep strike built in, so when it strategic reserves, it can strategic reserve anywhere. It doesn't have to come off the table edge. But worst case scenario, it's just a good stratagem. It is, if you don't deep strike, you are restricted on like returning in the first battle round, for example, so you can't necessarily turn one reserve into people. It's also infantry only, but this is very good for your utility stuff. I think there's an argument, and maybe this is the intended play pattern, for like the new Autarchs have like the rights of battle CP discount baked in. So I think maybe it's intended that you're supposed to take Autarch Wayleaper. They're not lone operatives anymore. They're kind of intended to join the units. But you can give him the Phoenix Gem and just run him around and constantly be deep striking him for free using his own CP discount. And he's like a crazy strong utility unit. Which is cool, right? That's cool. That's cool and good. And also you can shoot at him, so it's not quite as broken as the Phoenix Gem Autarch Wayleaper is currently. So this detachment, I think, is probably, at least to my eyes right now, seems like the number one so far. Just the amount of maneuverability you have with it is crazy. And the fact that it so well synergizes with the army ability, it seems really, 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 really good. So this is where I would probably start playing around with Eldar, but we can talk about some of the other detachments too. Windrider Host is the next one. This one's pretty wild. It makes you into like kind of Grey Knights almost for your mounted and Viper units. You can strategic reserve one battle round higher, so they can come. You can come in bottom of the first battle round out of, or top of the first battle round out of strategic reserve. Then I guess it's like only stuff that begins in reserve. They can come in out of strategic reserve. But then end of your opponent's turn. Yeah, okay. I know how this works. So you can start your stuff in reserve. They come in out of strategic reserve, and when you are strategic reserving, you count it the battle round as being one higher. And then in addition, you get an up-down where you can place units into strategic reserve. So it is specifically strat reserve for mounted and Viper units only. So you have to come in off a table edge, and in a Strike Force game, you get 2 of them. So that's pretty useful. It's not like the wildest ability ever. It's just very good because you're constantly going to be able to be repositioning your bikers. But the thing to keep in mind is that the bikers are kind of coming off the table, and none of them have deep strike. So none of them are going to be like doing weird, like super crazy hijinks. Although being able to like jump into your opponent's backline really early is going to be big. The enhancements are really good too. First Drawn Blade gives you Scout 9. Mirage Field makes you -1 to be hit. Seer Sight Strike is really cool. It gives you anti-monster, anti-vehicle on your psychic weapons. There are no devastating psychic weapons, as far as I know, unfortunately, so this doesn't like hyper combo with anything. But you can make the Warlocks have a little torrent weapon, so you can make that anti-monster, anti-vehicle. Farseers have their D3 damage, Eldritch Blast. Those are all really good, and those Skyrunners are really strong in Windrider units, which is the focus of the detachment. We have the last one is Echoes of Ulthanesh. In your command phase, you roll a d6. You get +1 if the bearer is not inside your deployment zone, and +1 if the bearer is not within your opponent's deployment zone, or is within your opponent's deployment zone. Excuse me. On a 5+, you get a CP. Pretty good. You can like maybe combo that with the first round blade, so you can scout out of your deployment zone and then score it, but. Mostly there for a little CP regen, because we are going to use a lot of stratagems in here. Although, realistically, I think we're just going to take Eldrad. We talked about Eldrad the other day. He gives you CP generation, and I feel like this is a detachment where you're just burning CP all the time. Death from on High is the first stratagem. It gives you Wound rerolls if you are set up from the battlefield this turn on a mounted or Viper unit. Overflight is kind of an insane one. After you destroy an enemy unit, it's basically Overrun, like old Tyranid Overrun. After you destroy an enemy unit in the shooting or the fight phase, you can make a normal move up to 7. The thing that people noticed about this almost instantly is that it doesn't say you can't charge after it, so it's not like Fire and Fade, where you are restricted from doing anything cool afterwards. You can actually use this as a mobility amp. However, you have to kill someone to do it. It doesn't work if you just shoot at them and they don't die. If you have to destroy the unit. You can also use this multiple times per turn because it's shooting or fight phase. You can also use it on your opponent's turn. Or excuse me, you can't do that. In their fight phase, I mean. So if you're engaged in melee and you kill them, you can then move to set yourself up for the next turn or to like score objectives and stuff. So there's like a lot of really weird optionality with this. But I think a lot of times what's going to happen is that like a unit of like Shining Spear is just going to run up, stab something, and then run back behind a wall. You can even like in the best case scenario, you could like run a unit up, shoot with it, kill something, move 7. Then charge, kill something else, then move 7 again to like take their home objective. Although that's probably a pipe dream. We'll see. It feels to me like the most of the bikers are either like very good at shooting or very good at melee. Like Shining Spears, you might be able to wombo out into doing both, but they don't get any characters. So I don't know. We'll see. Wind of Blades allows you to shoot or advance, fall back, and shoot and charge. Extremely, extremely good because you could also just be like pumping their movement as well. So you could move 16 plus d6 on a like a Shining Spear unit, shoot, charge, and potentially even 7-inch move somewhere in there on top of that. So the amount of threat range from this detachment is fucking wild. Daring Riders allows you. It's a 3-inch deep strike. I imagine this will get day 1 eroded to a 6-inch or reserve arriving from reserve. It's the basically the demon stratagem where you deep strike 6 inches instead of doing normal reserve restrictions. So you can come in. Or it's like Cosmic Precision. It's just Cosmic Precision for mounted units. You can come in 6 inches away from enemies, most likely after the update happens, anywhere on the battlefield rather than just from the table edge. So yeah, it's literally just that stratagem. These strats don't work on Harlequin bikes? Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's Asuryani mounted, and Harlequins are not Asuryani, they're Harlequins. It's a weird way of doing things, but it does mechanically separate the Harlequins out. And it also means that vice versa, in the Harlequin detachment, most of their stratagems only work on Harlequin stuff and not on the Asuryani stuff. So you win some, you lose some. Damn Legion in chat, what's up, dude? Nice to see you. Hope you're having a good day. Eldred with defenders to keep him safe while dooming? Yeah, I agree. Or do you just have him? He's just chilling. In Warhost, you can fire and fade him. So he can run up, he can doom something, use his gun, and then run away, and he can just keep doing that over and over. But obviously, a little bit tougher in the other ones. Although the defenders get to run away, fade back for free. So the hope is that they don't kill Adrad in one shot, which I guess is unlikely. It's hard to kill that guy through an entire unit of dudes. Focused Firepower is the next one. You get +1 AP in shooting. It's just a good buff. That's just solid. And then Spiraling Evasion gives you 4+ invulnerable save in shooting for your mounted units. So, yeah, I don't know. All the stratagems of this detachment are great. We talked about some insane wombos we can do. We can double attach. At least, as far as I know, the rules allow us to double attach Farseers and Warlock Conclaves, Warlock Skyrunner Conclaves, into Windrider units, so we can make units of 9 guys that have a pretty solid boat of ranged attacks between like the sight, the anti-monster, anti-vehicle, gunshot, plus all the little shooting. This ability gives your singing spears on your psychers anti-monster, anti-vehicle as well, so they are wounding literally everything on 2s basically. plus you're shooting a million times, and then you're overflying away, and you might even be scouting at the same time. So you can have this big brick that's running around all at the same time. You're staging with like shining spears that are going to be able to advance and charge and go super fast. And then you can up down like smaller units of Windriders just all over the place. I think this attachment's going to be really, 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 really strong. Whether or not it is as consistent as the Warhost, I think remains to be seen. We'll have to see. That's much more infantry pilled. A lot of this stuff is infantry focused versus having bikes, but it has a lot of the same like power behind it. Seer Council is the next one. This one we talked about the detachment ability and the stratagems when we did our preview the other day. This one, if any of these might be like a real big miss, this might be the one. Although Unshrouded Truth is fucking wild. It's a wild stratagem. So it has really good stratagems, but the problem is that its detachment ability is basically like you start with 4 extra CP or something. Which is a pretty good detachment ability. But like, I don't know. When we're talking about like uppy downies and your entire army moves like 3 more inches a turn, it's not that exciting. So, like, I don't know. So real quick, the way Fate dice work now is that you roll 6 dice in a Strike Force game. Based on the facing of those dice, you can use you can discount the cost of a stratagem by 1. All of the stratagems cost 1, so you get a free strat for each Fate dice. The strat that you gain is based on the number that you roll. So it's down the line here, I believe. Presentiment of Dread is 1, Forewarned is 2, Unshrouded Truth is 3. That one's the most exciting one. So 3 is the easiest one to get if we're subtracting, or one of the easier one to get if we're subtracting or adding to values. So that one's pretty nice. Fate Inescapable is 4. Aetius Fury is 5, and Psychic Shield is 6. You've got an enhancement to adjust the value of the Fate dice that you've rolled, so you can try to adjust them into the stratagems that you want. You can add or subtract the 1 from the value of 1 Fate dice in your Fate dice pool. Interestingly, I believe that just it's not. I guess this might need a clarification, but I believe that this is a permanent change. So even if you're not using any free strats, you can just be adjusting all of your dice to get to the numbers that you want. So if you're like, over the course of the game, I know I'm going to want to use Unshrouded Truth 3 times, Forewarned 3 times, and I want the ability to have Psychic Shield, then you can start to manipulate your face dice pool to get to that point. Even if you haven't spent any of those dice. I don't know if that's 100% intended or if that's the way that that's supposed to work, but I believe that that's how it goes. I think you are just flipping the physical dice to 1 or less, but I don't 100% know. Worst case scenario, it lets you basically expand the size of the Fate dice range by 1 for each of these, so Unshrouded Truth becomes like 2, 3, or 4 instead of just a 3. But I believe that you can also get some additional value out of it. Runes of Warding gives you a 4+ Feel No Pain against. This is a funny wording that tickled me a little bit. It's critical wounds caused by the attacks with the Devastating Wounds ability. So we know exactly when that was written because that was the rule, like start of last year. we can create a perfect like window right there where that was. Now those just become mortal wounds that apply to a single model. So we don't need this clause. 4+ Feel No Pain against immortal wounds works already, but it gives you a psychic hood essentially. A Stone of Eldritch Fury gives you 12 inches to the range of psychic weapons. Pretty good because you can have like range. You can have range 12 Destructors and Singing Spears and stuff, and being able to throw those 24 is pretty sweet. Torque of Morai Heg. It gives you once per turn, you can CP tax someone within 12. It's okay. It's like a slightly less oppressive Calidus Assassin, I guess. In terms of the stratagems, Presentiment of Dread is like kind of it's whatever. You can force a Battle Shock check on somebody in anyone's command phase. You might be able to make them be scared and lose an objective occasionally, but they have to actually fail the test. So who knows? You also have to be visible, so a little bit weird. Forewarned is -1 to be hit and wounded on infantry models as long as they're within 9 inches of one or more Asuryani Psykers when they're targeted by an attack. So that's a very good defensive ability. Doesn't work on Wraith constructs, unfortunately, but it does mean that your unit is very likely to survive until it can fade away. So solid stratagem. Unshredded Truth we talked about previously. It's a movement phase reposition. So it's used in your movement phase if you're within 9 inches of one or more Asuryani Psyker models, as long as the unit you're repositioning has not been selected to move. So essentially, all you need is like to have a Farseer Skyrunner or something who just runs over to a unit, and they can run like 22 inches potentially. So you have a 31-inch like threat on this ability where you can just like plus move, run this guy almost anywhere on the table within 9 inches of a infantry unit. Before that unit goes to move, you pay a CP or you pay your fate dice, and then you just reposition them 9 inches away from enemies. So you get to see what your secondaries are at the time that you use this stratagem, and you can reposition the rest of your army around the stratagem being used. You don't have to pre-declare it before your turn, which is so strong. So this is the reason we would be playing Seer Council, I think, if we wanted to play it. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good. It is infantry only, I guess, to be fair, in non-Wraith construct infantry. So it is very limited on its use case. But we can do things like reposition the Dire Avengers with Asurmen and then move them or whatever. Real good. Real Gucci. Fate Inescapable gives you ignore cover and critical +1 AP, so a little Bladestorm kind of energy there. Pretty nice. Isha's Fury, you do it's when your opponent ends a normal advance or fallback move within 9 inches of a Psyker, you do like a little grenade on them, which is whatever. It's good if you like engage someone and they're on 1 and they run away and you're like, bam, kill you. But I don't know. Psychic Shield is the next one. It gives you an 18-inch lone operative on infantry. So the stratagems are pretty good. The detachment ability gives you more of the stratagems. Unfortunately, none of them are like, oh, like besides Unshredded Truth, in my opinion. None of them are like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm going to be using this all the time. So I think that's a little sad. A detachment ability of get a bunch more stratagems when you're talking about basically one really good stratagem and then a bunch of really mediocre stratagems is kind of whatever. But I guess Psychic Shield is good. I don't know. So this one feels like the least exciting to me, in my opinion. Asuryani, have you learned the power of to jump? Reposition Fire Dragons? Yeah. Fire Dragons would be good for sure. That one seems good. You can reposition the Psykers themselves. Yeah, also good. Also, just doing it on like 5 Rangers or something, just to be like scoring objectives all the time, feels like it's pretty solid. Downside is you can't like this detachment would. Again, like I said at the top, like this doesn't even feel particularly bad. It's just, I think, in my opinion, the least exciting out of all of them. Because the other ones are doing these big flashy things. This one just seems like it's going to very consistently score, right? You're going to be like, hey, here's my like little fucking idiot, like my little idiots over here. I'll put Storm Guardians on this objective, Psychic Shield them, and then teleport utility into your deployment zone, score a bunch of points, obsec the objective, pass to you. And then you're like, okay, well, you're scoring a million times and have a trillion CP. Like, that's annoying. Please stop. But, you know, the other detachments are like, hey, we're going to move 22 inches or 20 a million, I don't know, 1,000 inches with Shining Spears and kill you and then run away or something. So it's just like, I don't know, it's just fine. You can teleport Eldrad and a Seer Council with AP3 Flamers. I guess so. That does sound cute. I don't know if it's good, but it does sound cute. Spirit Conclave is the next one. This is the Wraith Detachment. It has 2 detachment abilities. First off, you give battle focus to your Wraith, Blades, Guard, and Lords, not Knights. Wraith Knights don't get a benefit from that. From this ability, the second ability. Here. Zoom in. We'll see what I'm talking about here. So over here. Wraith Guard, Blades, and Lords, get battle focus. They don't have battle focus normally. They have, like, their own thing. In addition, when your opponent kills your Psyker models, you gain a Vengeful Dead token, which gives you +1 to hit and wound against that. So you basically get 2 Judgment tokens on them. You also gain Battle Line Wraith units, which is cool. Now, I think it's important, before we go too far, because of... And we'll probably do this with the other... Like, these are basically sub-faction-specific detachments. So before we go too far into this detachment, I want to talk about the Wraith datasheets. So let's do that real quick. Because that's going to be important for context here. All the way down through the datasheets. I apologize, everybody, for all of the clicking and dragging that I'm doing. So the Spirit Seer is the big one for this detachment, because this is where you're mostly going to be getting your Psyker like buff, your battle focus Psyker buff. I think they're mostly unchanged in terms of their profile. They have a pistol and they have an awkward like anti-infantry staff. They're not very good at fighting. They gain Lone Operative. They're no longer an attachment, so they don't lead anymore. However, which is a blessing and a curse, right? It means they can be attacked separately, but it also means that you can't, like, precision them. So, I don't know. You also can, like, run around a little bit more easily. They just gain Lone Operative when they're within 3 inches of a Wraith construct. That is any Wraith construct. It doesn't have to be, like, a big guy, so you can be next to a single Wraith guard, and you get Lone Operative, which is cute. They also have a kind of... a Tech Marine style of effect. Once per turn in your movement phase, when you start or end a move with the Spirit Seer, you can select a Wraith Construct unit within 6. Non-Titanic, they gain sustained hits 1. And an enemy unit. They gain sustained hits 1 against the enemy unit. So when we're discussing... and it's also all weapons. It's not melee or range. So when we're discussing these Wraith, these big Wraith units, we have to consider that many times. I'm not going to say every time, because you have to have a visible target in your movement phase. But many times these guys are also going to be sustained hits. So the Wraiths also have a baked-in +1 to hit as long as they're within 12 inches of a Psyker. And sustained hits is oftentimes basically +1 to hit already. So you are, in many cases, +2 to hit off these guys. You're essentially, like, mathematically hitting on 2s with them. You also can return destroyed models to Wraith Constructs units or heal guys D3 wounds in your command phase to a Wraith Construct unit within 6. So they still have the healing stuff. But otherwise, you can get these benefits from the benefits of Psykers guys being near you from either the Spirit Seer or the Farseers. So we can buff them with Farseers. We can buff them with Spirit Seers. Their base profiles are okay, I would say. They're not blowing me away, but they're all right. They are only T6 now instead of T7, which is sad. They do have a 2+ save. The Wraith Blades get a 3+ fight on death, which is pretty good, and then they get +1 to hit and +1, +2 leadership. I believe that goes to leadership 6. It's hard to read, but I believe that they become leadership 6 when they're within 12 inches of a Psyker model. So that could be the Spirit Seer, like I'm saying, and that brings them to weapon skill 3 equivalent, and then also they could potentially be getting sustained hits, or if you have a Spirit Seer targeting their target also. And then also they gain battle focus when they are near, if you're in that detachment, the Wraith detachment. So you can pump them to move 8, for example, or you can fade them away. So a lot of cool stuff. The Wraith Guard can fall back and shoot. They can't fall back and charge, but fortunately they also don't get like their weird like melee pistol shot, which is good because that was broken. They either have a Torrent weapon, strength 7, AP3, 1 damage, or the big Wraith cannon shot, strength 14, AP4, D6 +1. Non-devastating, but the other thing is that getting sustained hits on that weapon profile is usually pretty exciting because the additional activations of these like big cannon shots are really good. Downside as well is that these are all restricted to 5 models apiece. So we aren't getting the big bricks of 10 anymore, which is also sad. And then they have the same supportability. Wraith Lords are somewhere. They're there. They have an interesting ability. So they have the same +1 to hit thing, and they are also Wraith Construct keyworded, so we can do the sustained hits thing on them as well. They also choose a weapon or an enemy keyword at the beginning of the game and get reroll 1s to hit and wound against that keyword. So infantry, monster, mounted, or vehicle, and they gain a bonus against that. So getting them sustained hits can actually be like kind of sick if you are getting them if you have the opportunity, because they're swinging d6 +1, strength 10, AP3, and rerolling 1s to hit. So they have a pretty good chance of converting those. But otherwise, they lost their ability. Like, obviously, there's no fate dice anymore, so they don't regenerate fate dice, which is a little bit sad. But on the flip side, getting the rerolls does improve their consistency. I guess not quite as much as old Battlehost did, so they don't feel quite as good. But it's still, it's not that bad. I don't know. It's okay. It works on all their attacks, so it works on melee as well. I feel like I'm trying to sell this unit that I don't really believe in, but I don't know. The Wraith stuff, it feels kind of mid. Let's talk about the rest of the detachment. So the ability that they get from Psychers improves their weapon skill and ballistic skill, which also means that they could go down to literally just hitting on 2s if they have killed any Psychers. So if you're playing a couple Farseers and a couple Spirit Seers, then and like allowing your opponent to kill them, then your Wraith constructs could get very consistent against those potentially. Is that the first anti-mounted tech? I'm not sure. I think there's something else, but I can't remember what it is. It's like I want to say it's like a Death Rider thing. I don't remember. Anti-mounted and anti-epic hero. Yeah, we've got one. Is the Ynnari detachment missing? Yeah, I have it. It's not in this document, but I have a copy of it. I just didn't incorporate it into the PDF. All right, so let's talk about the stuff we can do with them. Light of Clarity is an enhancement for Spirit Seers. It gives you a command phase buff to additional OC to Wraith Construct units. Again, the Wraith Construct units are only 5 models, so you don't get the big 10-man bricks, which is a little bit sad. But +1 OC to those guys is pretty solid, especially because we can speed them up with agile maneuvers too. Stave of Kurnos. You select a Wraith Construct unit within 12 until the end of your command phase. You gain critical precision. Who cares?
Ryan G donated $2 through Super Chat. Is Trevi's favorite, the Wraith Seer, still around?
So Wraith Seer was a Forged World unit, so it's not going to be in this Codex. I have a sneaking suspicion it will probably be legended, but I don't know. We'll have to see once the Munitorum gets updated with everything. That's going to be a question for once the Codex comes out. I imagine it's not, but that would be great because then we could play 6 Wraith Lords again and fucking complain about Wraith Seers being unplayably trash. They're so bad. They're so bad. They make you take a battle shock check after they shoot you with their flamer. Ooh, what a time to be alive. Whereas the Wraith Lord's over here with 2 Bright Lances regenerating fate dies. Stupid Wraith Seer, he sucks. Maybe they'll get a new data sheet. They won't. There's no way. There's no way. But that would be cool. Maybe they're like 10 points. Maybe they're free. Maybe you just get 3 Wraith Seers in your army for free. That would be cool. Rune of Mists. You choose a Wraith Construct unit within 12. They get benefit of cover if the attack model is not within 18. It's totally fine. You are 2+8, which is cool. So getting cover while in the open and getting like OC bonuses and taking objectives is sweet. But your opponent could just move inside the range, and then you get no benefit from your enhancement. I don't really know why there's a there's a restriction on it. That feels weird, but it is what it is. Especially because it's 10th edition. You're almost always in cover anyway. Higher Duty gives you a reactive move on a Spirit Seer if an enemy unit moves within 9 inches. You can run him away, and I like that the flavor text is that the Seer chooses duty over personal glory, but realistically, he's just running away from you. So it's like, my higher duty is to live, to fight again on a future battle round. Goodbye, Wraith Constructs, you've got this. And he just like skitters away. So yeah, I don't know. Seems good. Stratagems. You get an AP and damage characteristic modifier ignoring for a Wraith Construct unit from a Psyker model that can see the target. So that's pretty good. A little bit, kind of a lot of hoops to jump through to get that. But ignoring armor penetration and damage characteristic modifiers is really good. You're gonna kill a Redemptor Dreadnought super dead. Importantly, the Psyker only has to be in range of the Wraith Construct unit. It doesn't have to. There's no range restriction on the enemy unit. You have to target an enemy unit that's visible, and then your own Wraith Construct unit within 12. So, as long as your Psyker can see the target, then you're good, regardless of how far away they are. Wraith Bone Armor. You get damage reduction 1 from Wraith Constructs that are not Titanic. Very good. Wraith Blades, Wraith Lords, or Wraith Knights gain devastating wounds in melee for a CP. Also good. Especially because we, I don't know, are going to be like maybe hitting on 2s with sustained hits. Those Wraith Blades are looking pretty solid. Soul Bridge. You can pay a CP to count your guys within 12 inches of a Psyker to get all of the guiding abilities. Spirit Token allows you to obsec an objective if you do it with Wraith Blades. It's at the start of your movement phase, not in the command phase, which is a little funny, but I guess it lets you Light of Clarity to OC bump something, and then start of your movement phase you can obsec. I don't really... So I guess you can't do it on a Battle Shocked unit either, so you have to wait until the Battle Shock step, which is probably why that timing works. And Crushing Strides on Wraith Blade, Wraith Lords, or Wraith Knights gives you a impact to tech. So use it in your charge phase. After you complete a charge, you roll a d6 for each Wraith Blade, or 4d6 if you're a Wraith Lord, 6d6 if you're a Wraith Knight, 3+ to deal mortal wounds. So it's 4 mortal wounds on average from a Wraith Knight, probably 2-ish from a Wraith Lord, and like maybe 2-ish from a full Wraith Blade unit. So it's a little bit of a tiny tank shock, but those are nice to have regardless. So overall, I think the Wraith Constructs profiles are maybe lacking a little bit, I think. I like the Wraith Blades in this detachment, and it does feel like being able to speed those guys up and bump their OC and make them super hard to kill so that you can obsec objectives is like normally how it's going to be playing. Again, because like you can do a lot of funny stuff and you can play around a lot of stuff because you're giving battle focus to your Wraith guys. But this one doesn't feel quite as exciting to me as some of the other ones. That said, like I mentioned at the top, and like we talked about with the Seer Council, all of the detachments feel really playable. Like none of these feel like they're super dead, and there are things going on with this detachment. It just feels like there might be a lot of hoops you have to jump through to play it. All right, let's talk about. We're gonna close out on the Eldar detachments, and then we can talk about sub-factions momentarily. So, Guardian Battlehost is the next one. This is like a real scoring pilled detachment. You want to score a bunch of points? Play some fucking Guardian Battlehost, bro. It gives you the Star Shatter Arsenal ability, targeting enemies on objective. You get +1 to hit with Dire Avengers, Guardians, support weapons, and Warwalkers. It's fine. I think, alright. I guess Warwalkers and support weapon platforms getting +1 to hit is cool. Dire Avengers also pretty cool, but good too. But those are not like the most exciting units in the entire game. And it's also only enemies on objectives. So your opponent can play around it really easily. Enhancements, you can gain OC5 on an Asuryani model. Just a casual OC5, no big deal. Like I said, scoring. We're scoring points with this detachment. Ethereal Pathway gives 2 Guardians Infiltrators. Guardian units includes both Guardian Defenders and Storm Guardians, and Storm Guardians have OBSEC, so we can infiltrate OBSEC infantry into the middle of the table and OBSEC the objectives from the start of turn 1. So that's not too bad. That's pretty good. We're also putting like 22 models in the middle of the table too, potentially more if we're attaching like support weapons to those units and stuff. So it's a lot of midboard presence from this one enhancement. That's pretty solid. Protector of the Paths, while you're leading Dire Avengers or Guardians, once per battle round you get Fire Overwatch for free, and you get 5+ hit rolls or 4+ if you're in range of objective marker. It's fine. It's whatever. I don't know. Storm Guardians get flamers, like they get 2 flamers, so maybe it's good, but whatever. Dire Avengers don't have any Overwatch mechanics anymore baked in, which is probably for the best because they weren't very good to begin with. So this is like kind of how we're bringing those back, but it's whatever. Breath of Vol is the last one. This one's a little weird. You get rerolls with flamer attacks for a number of shots, and reroll damage rolls for Guardian, capital G, Guardian fusion guns in the unit. So inside a Storm Guardian unit, you gain 2 fusion guns and 2 flamers, and this guy's trying to make those do a bunch of damage. If you put it on an Autarch or something. Awkwardly, it doesn't affect the Autarch fusion gun because he has a Fire Dragon fusion gun. So it's like super mid. I don't know. Reroll flamer shots is like fine, I guess. But the 2 like offensive enhancements here are a little bit weird. Again, we're buffing the regular guys in the army, right? This is like buffing tactical Marines, you know, like nobody's that excited about it. Warding Salvos is a stratagem, 1 CP for a battle tactic. You can reroll wound rolls when you target enemies on an objective. Great stratagem. Your opponent can simply not touch the objective, then you don't get it. But occasionally they are going to have to wander onto that objective, and then especially like Dire Avengers with Asuryani go absolutely fucking insane with wound rerolls, as we'll talk about when we get to his fucking datasheet. Oh my god. So it's good. It's a good stratagem. It's good when you can use it, but it's sort of under your opponent's control whether you're going to get the ability. Shield nodes, Dire Avengers or Guardians, selected as a target of an attack. You get -1 to be wounded. Again, we're largely like trying to keep the units alive so they can fade away. So it's pretty good. I don't know. -1 to be wounded is fine. Vol's Vengeance, a Warwalker unit from your army. After your opponent destroys a Dire Avenger or a Guardian unit, your Warwalker unit can shoot them. It is any Warwalker anywhere on the table, as long as they can eligibly target the enemy. This is very cute. I don't know how much it's gonna it's gonna come up, but it is very cute. You can shoot back with your little Warwalker. I guess it's like, hey, Gladiator Lancer, or Gladiator Reaper, how dare you burp down my Dire Avenger unit? Now I'm going to shoot you with 2 Bright Lances. Maybe I'll kill you, but probably I won't. But it's only a CP, so it's fine. You only get 1 per battle round, though. Sad. Time to Strike. Usable in your movement phase. Instead of making an advance roll, you move 6 inches on a Storm Guardian unit. And you can shoot and declare a charge. Pretty good for getting your high OC guys to objectives. Again, we're scoring super hard, and we can also buff those dudes up with +2 movement. So I believe that their base move 8, and then you can buff them to move 10, and then move 16, and then charge. Pretty solid. You could also have an OC5 character in that unit, potentially, as well, so you can dump 25 OC onto your opponent's objective. Like I said, chat, we're scoring today. We're scoring all the points. Blades of Asuryan, your shooting phase, Dire Avenger or Guardians that are engaged get pistol. I guess they don't have to be engaged, so you could fire into melee without penalty if you really wanted to. It's kind of cute. But generally, I mean, it's whatever. And last, and certainly not least, maybe the most interesting stratagem in the detachment, cost of victory. A guardian unit from your army, end of your opponent's fight phase, uppy downies. So it goes into strategic reserve. Then all the guardians in your unit return. So even if you've got one dude remaining in the unit, you're like, pay 1 CP. That guy goes into strategic reserves and gets 9 friends back, and then comes back on. Very cool stratagem. It doesn't return, I don't believe... I guess it returns your weapon platforms, but I don't believe it will return your support weapons. I don't think those are guardians. Keyworded, no. Your support weapons will not come back. So it's just the... I imagine it's just the guardian models and the... I don't know where guardians are, chat. I've lost it. And the weapon platform. Assuming there's not... They don't have a particular keyword. I actually didn't look. They were the next page down. Yeah, the entire unit is guardians, so all of the guardians come back, including their little weapon platform guy. So you get your bright lance back, probably. Cute. It's a cute stratagem, chat. I think it's probably good. You can use that like consistently over the course of the game, and then you come towards the end of the game and you have like 20 more models than your opponent expected, because if they haven't fully killed Guardian Defenders, then the Guardian Defenders just come back as an 11-man unit. And again, like, these guys fade away for free, right? The Defenders do anyway. So like, you can eat like one big shot with them, lose half the unit, run out of line of sight, and then uppy downy them, respawn 10 of them, and then run back to your opponent's like home objective or something. So it's I don't know, the flexibility of the detachment's really cool. It's probably worth at this point discussing Guardians, because we are talking about the Guardian Detachment. So let's do that. I should region my viewer. Something has happened here. We're just cut off a little bit. Okay. So the Guardian Defender guys, they can use Fade back for free. They can do it in addition to other units having done so as well. They also gain a heavy weapon platform, so a 2 wound, 4+ save thing with a Bright Lance that's going to eat some damage before the rest of the unit dies, most likely. It goes away if the last Guardian Defender is dead, so you want to eat some shots on the heavy weapon platform first. And then they just have like a little Shuriken Catapult. 2 shots, Assault, Strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage. It's a fine weapon, but it's not really that exciting. The Storm Guardians are a little bit more interesting. They have objective secured. They don't get the fade away for free. However, they have a 5+ invulnerable save thanks to their the Serpent Scale platform. And they get up to 2 of them have flamers, and up to 2 have fusion guns, and up to 2 have power swords. So, and I guess like realistically, you can put your flamers and your fusion guns on your power sword guys, which I'm just now realizing, which is kind of funny. So you have a bunch of like little chainsword guys. Their melee attacks don't really matter. They're 2 attacks, like strength 3. Who cares? It's a little weird that I guess they get an extra attack over Guardian Defenders, but they are kind of pillow-fisted regardless. But they get 4 special weapons in their unit, and their objective secured. So we can like infiltrate them up the table, and like I mentioned before, we can max like their movement. I guess they're move 7, not move 8. So they can go up to 9 with Agile, or with Swift to the Wind, and then up to 15 inches with the Stratagem for Advance and Charge and non-auto 6 Advance, and then Charge. So we're like forcing a bunch of OC down our opponent's throat, potentially. And then like reanimating these guys and using the uppy downy with them is actually, it's a little scary, because they're like, they have actual shooting with their special weapons, and that's pretty cute. So yeah, I don't know. Warwalkers, are the other beneficiary of that detachment, and they are real strong. More in the middle here. Here you go. They are much easier to kill now than they were in the Index, which hopefully everyone breathes a sigh of relief, because, oh my god. You try to remove a Warwalker from the battlefield, no one can do it. No man can accomplish that exercise. They have 9-inch scout, so a ton of, like, absolutely immense amounts of midboard presence. They get 2 big heavy weapons and a 5+ invulnerable save. Only 6 wounds at T7, so like dedicated infantry or anti-tank shooting will kill them. Not like the previous time where they were like -1 to be wounded and had a 4+ invulnerable save with fate dice, so like they were never gonna die. But the most important thing is that after they have shot, you choose an enemy unit that was hit, and all your attacks targeting that unit gain +1 AP. So they have the Castigator rule just baked in. And you can take 2 different heavy weapons. So potentially you could take like a Scatter Laser and a Bright Lance if you wanted to split fire. And then you just like ping the +1 AP off of the Scatter Laser because it shoots 6 times. So its chance of hitting is it has a very high chance of hitting. Whereas the Bright Lance could get a little bit funky. Or you could just like double Bright Lance somebody and fucking kill them. I don't know. So there's like interesting little compositions you can build with these things. They seem really great. Obviously, cost is going to be a factor. They're a fast and small little utility unit that can also buff the rest of your army's damage output and have 2 heavy weapons. That's all really good. If they're super expensive, they're not going to be that exciting. You maybe take one of them if you want to kill a hard target. But if they're cheap, most armies will have 1 or 2 of these things just to buff themselves. The other thing for the Guardian sort of subtype are the support weapon platforms. Let's talk about those real quick. They got a split profile. So the support weapon platforms now, there's a profile for each version of them. And the important thing is that they can join Guardian Defender units. They count as part of the Guardian unit, but they aren't themselves Guardian models, I don't believe. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in that. So the stratagem to regenerate them will not regenerate your support weapon platforms if you have elected to kill them. But if they're still alive, then it's fine. But that can mean the Guardian. It's importantly Guardian Defenders only. So you can't do it to the Storm Guardians that have the Serpent Scale. So you don't get invulnerable saves on them. But they are adding another 5 wounds to the unit. So it makes the unit like legitimately very difficult to kill for anti-infantry shooting, especially if you're stacking an additional defensive buff on them. So we have a lot of like random -1 to be wounded and -1 to be hit or whatever stratagems over the course, the breadth of all the detachments. So we have a lot of ways to make this like 17 wound brick of guys kind of tough to take out. And then that lets them free strats or free run away. Are Windriders Guardians? I don't believe so, but it's worth checking. I actually don't know. Let's look. We have the technology. We can find out. No, they're not. They are Windriders. And Aeldari. That's good to know. That would be cool, though. It is a little weird, because they are just Guardians on top of a jet bike. But it would probably be too good if they were also Guardians and got all the Guardian synergies. Support weapon platforms. D-cannons are back, baby. I thought for a hot moment that we could use Farseers. Farseers have an auto 6 ability on their unit, but it says specifically non-weapon platform or support weapon models of the unit can use it, so you can't auto 6 these things. They still have indirect fire, devastating wounds, D3 shots, blast, strength 16, AP 4, D6 plus 2 damage, 24 inch range. It's a really good gun. Like, don't get me wrong. And then they get reroll damage rolls of 1, which is nice to have. If you target a Titanic unit, you get full damage rerolls as well. I don't know. It's a good gun. Don't have anything else to say about that. You can maybe get +1 to hit and reroll wounds on it from the Guardian Detachment, because you're getting +1 to hit if you target an enemy on an objective, if you're attached into a Guardian unit, and you get you use this strat for wound rerolls maybe. Shadow Weaver platform gives you an indirect fire blast weapon. The monofilament weapons are no longer devastating basically across the board, but they did get an AP value, although that will rarely matter if they're firing indirectly. It is D6 plus 2 strength 6 shots though, and after they have shot, you can entangle or snare something that you shoot at. It gives the unit that you shot the potential to take mortal wounds when they move. Roll a d6 for each model in the unit on the one and take a mortal. That's very cute. And I think it's a cool ability. How often it's going to matter is going to be questionable. But if you can hit a big unit of guys with that, it's actually super scary. And then Vibro Cannons have the old Vibro Cannon rule where each time they attack targeting an enemy unit, they get +1 strength, AP, and damage for each other Vibro Cannon platform model that attacked that weapon or that target. So you can be up to +2 strength, AP, and damage. So you can be strength 11, AP. I believe it's hard to see. I think this is a 2. So I think they go to AP 4 damage, which is good. D6 shots, no blast or anything. But it does require you to stack all the Vibro Cannons together. That's traditionally been a pretty okay ability. It does make the third Vibro Cannon platform in the crew pretty good, and if they're all attached to Guardian units and are getting benefits from shooting at that target, it's going to be pretty sweet. But it is a big investment to get that done, I guess, depending on how expensive the Vibro Cannons end up being. Would it work at surge moves? Yes, it would. Not charges, though, awkwardly. Hi. What are you doing? Squeaking. Being a squeaky girl. There you go. Sit down. Inky's very excited about our new Eldar domination. So that's the Guardian stuff. The detachment seems like it in and of itself has a little bit of a dearth of damage output, but there's other ways that we can find ways to kill people in the Eldar faction. It's not like the end of the world. Getting wound rerolls on enemies on objectives sometimes is pretty sweet, but it is only Dire Avengers or Guardian units. Like doing it on Storm Guardians is good, I guess, but largely we're doing like funny scoring stuff, right? We're like pushing high OC Storm Guardians into our opponent's face. Where like we have random like OC 5 like Autarch Ray Leapers or whatever, and we are like obsecking all the middle of the table with our Storm Guardians. You can even do funny stuff like you start a Storm Guardian unit like right on the middle objective at the top of the first turn, and then if your opponent goes first and they try to kill them, you just fade away anyway for a 1 battle focus token. And then like worst case scenario, you might lose like a couple Storm Guardians, and best case scenario, you obsec like 3 objectives in the center of the table from the start of the first turn. Pretty wild. I don't know. Detachment seems great, chat. Alright, Aspect Host is the last of the basic Eldar detachments. The real normal Eldar ones. This is the Aspect Warrior one. Inky is about to bump my camera. Yep, she knocked it out, and now it's broken. Why? Why are you like this, kitty? You're so silly. Alright, let's fix that. There we go. Oh, she fell down. Thanks, Inky. It's her contribution to the show. Inky strikes again. Are there any obvious duds in the book? Shadow Weaver against orcs or anything is amazing for 50 points. We'll see if it's 50 points. That's the question, right? Because we don't know. We don't know what the actual final points values of any of this stuff is, as I said in the chart. I don't think there's any obvious duds. I think that there's stuff that's like like Dud's like something that's like clearly like really bad. I don't know, maybe the Wraith stuff, but I think that it feels to me like it's just clearly less powerful than the top like I think this detachment's really good. The like biker stuff is really good. The Warhost stuff is really good. Like the Wraith and the Psyker detachments just feel not as good. But like in terms of a dud, like you know, why would the fuck would you ever play this? They don't feel like that to me. They feel like they're obviously less powerful than the top line stuff, but it definitely feels like there are still things going on with those detachments. We're not playing like Anvil Siege Force or whatever, where we're like, what do I do? We're playing First Company Task Force. Like, why am I doing this to myself? I don't understand. Like that, you know, worst case scenario, you get like an uppy downy for free every turn at the end of your movement phase, which is like wild. All right, Aspect Host. Each time Aspect Warriors or the Avatar of Khaine is selected to shoot or fight, select either hit rerolls of 1 or wound rerolls of 1 for that unit. That's great. That's a good that's a good ability right there. That's real strong. That's really good. Solid. Let's go. A lot of these things have weapon skill too. So having like reroll hits rolls of 1 is solid for them. We'll talk about all the Aspect Warriors, I guess, momentarily after we talk about these this detachment. Enhancements. Aspect of War of Murder, excuse me. Autarch or Autarch Way Leapers, you get +1 damage and your weapons have precision. Totally fine. +1 damage is okay. Mantle of Wisdom. Each time your unit is selected to shoot or fight, you get both reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1. Great. That's great. Shimmerstone, your unit is -1 to be wounded. Great. If it's an Aspect Warriors unit. And Strategic Savant, your unit gains +1 OC. All of these are pretty good. So I don't have no notes. Those all seem solid. I don't know. Just take most of these, I guess. Stratagems. Warrior Focus. You get weapon skill, strength, armor piercing, and damage characteristic modifier ignoring, and many modifiers to your hit roll. Very strong. That's always good for sure on Aspect Warriors or the Avatar of Khaine, which is all of the restrictions on all of the stratagems here. To their final breath, you get a 4+ fight on death. In addition, you can. We talked about this stratagem when we looked at the preview. In addition, you can remove an Aspect Shrine token from your unit. If you do, you get +1 to the result. Now, Aspect Shrine tokens, I believe, without exception, and I'm sure we'll take a peek at all the data sheets in a sec, give you a once per game, if you don't use them in this capacity, give you a once per game auto 6 on a hit or a wound roll. There are some combos that we can use with that kind of like make these units do a bunch of damage. Otherwise, we can use them to enhance our stratagems here. So it depends on which aspect you're playing. Some of the more shootier ones that you want to combo with characters are going to be better for the using them to attack, but some of the more melee-oriented ones that we're just running at our opponent, you might want to use on these stratagems. Skyborn Sanctuary. You end of the fight phase. It's literally just the one from the from Warhost. It's the same stratagem. We did it. We reprinted it. Let's go. Great stratagem. No notes. That's really good. Especially because, oh boy, are we going to be going into Falcons with this army? Oh boy. It's any Asuryani unit, interestingly. That one's not restricted to Aspect Warriors because it is a reprint. So that's really good. Doom Inescapable. Woo! Avatar of Khaine that has not been selected to shoot. Its Wailing Doom gets range 18 and damage 8. Okay. And the Avatar of Khaine, don't forget, is getting reroll, hit, and wound rolls of 1. Fascinating. Or hit rolls. It's reroll, hit, or wound rerolls of 1 when it goes to shoot. You're probably, I guess, rerolling the wound rolls, and then you just like CP reroll. If your opponent doesn't have an invuln save, this is the stratagem. If you have the CP floating, we don't have a way to auto 6 them, I don't believe, without fate dice, so we can't ensure that they get sustained. If they did, this would be really broken. But worst case scenario, we can clip a vehicle out sometimes with that strat, which is cool. That's very cute though. I hate Skyborn Sanctuary. Yeah, invalidates Warhost. Yeah, maybe Warhost can push the like transport shenanigans even harder because it has more ways to get into transports. But your units are more consistent in this detachment, so it might just be that we play aspect host. Preternatural Precision. You can choose ignore cover, lethal hits, or sustained. If you want to, you can discard an aspect shrine token, so you get rid of your auto 6 to gain 2 of the abilities. So lethal hits, ignore cover, sustain. If you can improve criticals, you can pay a CP, remove an aspect shrine token, get lethal sustain on your unit. Ta-da! We've done it. We are a fire discipline unit now. It does require that you give up a little bit of like efficiency on the unit already. But yeah, that's pretty good. Or ignore cover. That's equivalent to +1 AP in most situations. So yeah, I don't know. You're gonna do a bunch of damage with that for sure. It's also shooting phase only. That's important to note. So you can't do it on like sky or shining spears in the fight phase. It is only with your guns. This is like the fire dragon. This is the fire dragon stratagem, I think. Getting sustained hits on fire dragons that reroll everything is going to be awesome. Khaine's Vengeance is the last one. After an enemy unit, excluding monster or vehicle, falls back, they must take a desperate escape check if they were engaged in range of Aspect Warriors or an Avatar of Khaine. That's whatever. That's not a very good stratagem, to be fair. But it's okay to have one dud stratagem in a list of 5 absolutely phenomenal stratagems. I guess this one is like cute. So it's one cute stratagem that you might use every once in a while, and 4 incredibly strong stratagems, and a bunch of really good enhancements. You're already buffing the most powerful units in the Codex. The Aspect Warriors are nuts in this Codex. So yeah, I don't know. Should we talk about some fucking Phoenix Lords and Aspect Warriors, chat? Now we're talking about the Aspect Warrior Detachment. I think that's the natural follow along to all this stuff. Let's go in there. Warhost is more utility? Yeah, for sure. Warhost is, like, much more speedy. So I guess, like, if you value the speed, Warhost is going to be pretty good, right? Like, +3 movement for a battle focus token, and all the other cool stuff that you do is like, you know, getting more consistent fade backs and fire and fade and stuff is going to be great. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe you have 5 CP and you want to one-shot a Sentinel. Maybe you just want... Sometimes you just gotta one-shot a Sentinel, chat, you know? Yeah, so let's talk about the Avatar of Khaine real quick. He's T11 now, not T12. He also doesn't have access to Fortune, so you don't have -1 to be wounded anymore, which sucks. You can make enemy, or you can make an enemy unit -1 to wound you with a Skyrunner, but it doesn't affect all their stuff, and you have to see them. So realistically, you're not really -1 to be wounded. So the Avatar of Khaine, he also doesn't get Fate Dice anymore. He's much easier to kill. He's much less powerful than he was previously. But he gets the new Battle Focus stuff, so you can pump him up to move 12, and he has +1 to charge. So that's something. Maybe move 13 in Warhost. I'm gonna sneeze real quick. Sorry, chat. Ooh, woo. But on the whole, significantly less powerful than the previous version for sure. He still has damage incoming. He still gives +1 to advance and charge to Eldar within 6. I don't believe his weapon profiles have changed at all. His Wailing Doom, strength 16, AP4, D6 +2 damage. I feel like his ranged version was like more powerful than his melee version. Maybe his melee version was strength 14 instead of 16. It doesn't really matter. Whatever. He hits for a big number, and he could shoot for 8 damage maybe. I don't know. Pretty good. He did give strength in melee? Okay, cool. Yeah, it was weird that, like, shooting fire out of the sword was more strength than hitting you with the physical sword. It's like, it's a little bit weird. But I don't know. I'm no scientist, but it feels like being stabbed by the sword that is also shooting fire would do more damage than just shooting the fire. We'll talk about Autarchs real quick because the Aspect Warrior Detachment is very, very Autarch focused as well. All of the enhancements are all about Autarchs. Standard foot Autarchs can attach into Dark Reapers, Dire Avengers, Fire Dragons, Defenders, Howling Banshees, Storm Guardians, and Striking Scorpions. They gain abilities based on the aspects that they've joined. So Howling Banshees, Autarchs gain Fight First while they're leading Howling Banshees. Striking Scorpions gain Scout and Stealth and Infiltrators when they're leading Striking Scorpions. So instead of choosing a bunch of upgrades to apply to this guy, he now simply gains the attributes of the aspect that he's leading, which is cool. At least for those two. Obviously, he doesn't get all the other cool stuff that the other aspects do, but we can't all be winners. All the Autarchs just have rights of battle now, so they're just Space Marine captains essentially. And they have some interesting melee options. We can take the Glaive is weapon skill 2 now, versus previously I believe that you took a weapon skill penalty for taking it. It was weapon skill 3. So that one's the obvious one to me. It's AP 3 damage. It hits on 2s, so if he's leading an aspect unit, then you are rerolling 1s probably in the fight phase. So it's like 2s rerolling 1s into 3s against infantry, 5s against vehicles for AP 3 damage. Very solid attack. You could take a Chain Sword, which is 7 attacks with sustained 1, or a Banshee Blade, which is anti-infantry 3, I believe, with 5 attacks at AP 2 damage, which also feels pretty good if you got to clear Space Marine bodies. And then you get a gun as well. So you can take Death Spinner, so a Torrent weapon, Dragon Fusion Gun, which feels like the easy one, the easy pick. Strength 9, AP 4, D6 damage. It's a Melt Gun with Melt 3, or a Fusion Pistol. I guess you could take a Reaper Launcher. That's Strength 10, AP 2, 3 damage. So that might be the play, actually. Although the Dragon Fusion Gun is Assault, so if you're advancing and shooting stuff, you probably take that one. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. You've got a good melee profile, and all the ranged attacks are pretty solid too. So the new foot Autarchs just feel like they're pretty strong. Autarch Wayleaper has the same selection of weapons. He regenerates battle focus tokens. Oh, I guess on the for the foot Autarch, you get to reroll agile maneuvers and advance rolls made for your unit. The Autarch Wayleaper instead refunds your battle focus tokens for on a 3+. So if you're using him to buff your become unoverwatchable or buff your movement or something, he can give you the battle focus tokens back, which is cute. But he also gives you rights of battle. He can join into Swooping Hawks or Warp Spiders if he wants to. As I mentioned before, I think there's also an argument in Warhost to just play this guy by himself. He's no longer lone operative. He joins into the fast aspect units, the flying aspect units. But you can Phoenix Gem him and just constantly redeploy him around the table, which is really cute. He's not quite as exciting to me as the foot Autarch because the foot Autarch melee units are really strong, but having battle focus token regeneration is okay on this guy, I guess. All right. Next up, chat. It's Phoenix Lord time. Let's go. All right. Let's rip the Band-Aid off real quick and talk about Asurmen. So, I'll go through each Phoenix Lord and their attached unit together while we talk about all the Aspect Warriors. So Dire Avengers are they're pretty well sort of redesigned. They're no longer this defensive Overwatch bulwark. They now just shoot a million times. They're they're kind of a dedicated infantry sweeper, which is kind of sweet. They have I believe it's range 18, but it could be range 16. I really can't tell because the scan is a little grainy here. on their Avenger Shuriken Catapult. It's an assault weapon. It shoots 4 times. 4 times if you are within 9 inches of your target, or half range, I should say. So whatever his range is, halved. You also gain Sustained 1. So if we're talking about Warhost, for example, and we're within half range and gain Sustained 1, we also gain critical 5s. So we're critically on 5s for sustained hits. Which is great. That also affects your attached stuff. So if you're attaching an Autarch or you're attaching Asurmen, you're also gaining sustained hits from Asurmen. Already pretty good. You can still take double shuriken catapults on your Exarch. So a unit of 5 guys attacks 24 times, potentially with sustained 1. So they're just going to clip little infantry squads. These are like intercessors, basically. You get the Aspect Shrine token, which gives you an unmodified 6, and you can take 1 Aspect Shrine token, and this is the case for all of your all of the Aspect Warriors for every 5 models in the unit. So it is potential that you have 2 Aspect Shrine tokens available to you, but in doing so, you have to take a giant unit. And that probably precludes a lot of like transport options and stuff. So it's kind of questionable. So that's Dire Avengers. Asurmen, we discussed on the preview show, but now having everything in context, Asurmen is fucking insane. He's got he's got his set of shuriken catapults are 6 shots, strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage. He also gains the abilities of the unit he's joined into, so he is getting sustained 1 if he attacks somebody within 12. He has a devastating sword, which is also great, and importantly, we can use the Aspect Shrine tokens on the Phoenix Lords because it's anyone in the unit. So we can auto 6 either him in melee or with his gun to get devastating. In addition, once per game, when he's selected to shoot, you can use Hand of Asuryan, which gives him 3 damage, anti-infantry 3, and devastating on his guns. So he's potentially firing 6 shots with sustain 1. If you're in Aspect Shrine, reroll 1s to hit, and 3 damage devastating. If you can source wound rerolls on him, so we're either in where here comes the cat to knock over the camera again. You gonna break my camera, kitty? Please don't. If we are in the Guardian Battlehost, or we are disembarking a Falcon, because Falcons kept their old version of fire support, we are also getting wound rerolls. So, average dice, Asurmen is converting basically all of his attacks, right? He might even sustain a couple times if he's benefiting. So he's probably rolling 6 wound rolls. If he naturally generates 1/6, he then re-rolls if you can source re-rolls from him. Probably, on average, generates a second 6, and then uses the Aspect Shrine token from the unit to generate a third 6, and hands your opponent 9 devastating damage, plus whatever else he rolled naturally. And then, the rest of the unit shoots your opponent 24 times.
Matthew McClellan donated $4.69
Hey!
through Super Chat. Inky is the real laughing god.
Inky is the meowing god, for sure. Thank you for the Super Chat, $4.69. Nice. Yeah, and then, but wait, there's more. After you shoot your gun with Asurmen, if he's leading a unit, you get to fire and fade 6 inches. So his unit runs out of a transport, dumps out, uses his once per game, one-shots a tank, and then gets back in the transport to do it again next turn. And if your opponent shoots the transport to try to kill them and stop that from happening again, and doesn't one-shot it, you fade away, and their Falcon runs behind cover. Assuming that you can like edge terrain, and you need a good terrain layout or whatever. Falcons are big. Maybe your opponent can find lines of sight. Who knows? We'll see what the board state looks like. Worst case scenario, Asurmen's transport runs 1 billion inches up the table, and then he kills Italy Winrus. Worst case scenario. Yeah, this dude's fucking wild. It's crazy. Seems really good, chat. I don't know. Barry, old Baharroth over here, the mighty have fallen a little bit, because last edition Baharroth was the most annoying fucking piece of shit ever. Now he's just pretty good. You get an uppy downy with him every turn. We talked about his ability already, but we have a little bit more context now. You get an uppy downy with him every turn. He can 3-inch deep strike, which will probably get changed to a 6-inch deep strike, but then can't charge if you want to. However, that's only when he's leading a unit, so he doesn't really do anything by himself. When he arrives on the battlefield, he automatically critical wounds on all of his attacks. So he could, if he makes a charge out of deep strike, or excuse me, it's ranged attacks. So I guess it doesn't matter if he charges, but if he's shooting, he has lethal hits on his gun. All of his attacks lethal hit. I think he's only AP 1, 2 damage, so it's like really cute. He'll come in and throw a bunch of saves at you, but it's kind of whatever.
Hive Fleet Murder donated $1.99 through Super Chat. This Codex needs an Earth Day 1, most hop ever.
Thank you for Super Chat, Hive Fleet Murder. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I do think it looks extremely strong. Obviously, we don't have points values yet. If, like, you're like, oh man, this Asurmen combo is fucking wild. He's gonna throw so many devastating wounds. Oh my god, it's crazy. And then he's like 180 points, and Dire Avengers are 110 for 5, and a Falcon's 150, and you killed a Leman Russ with 400 points of your army. You're like, all right, well, fair enough, I guess. But we'll see. There is definitely a universe where he costs 110, and Dire Avengers are 80, and Falcon's 120, and you're like, what are we doing with our lives? But hopefully that's not the universe we live in. We'll see. Certainly isn't 10th launch Aeldari. Yeah, to be fair, though, in Hive Fleet Murder's defense, that was not a codex. Is this the most OP codex written? We'll see. Sisters were pretty dumb. Sisters were extremely stupid on release. So I don't know if I would not necessarily want to say that this is the most OP codex ever, but we'll see. Are the points not accurate in this codex? Yeah, so points in codexes are usually not accurate. Like the Astra Militarum one got like totally rewritten day one. The only points, if you're playing competitively, the only points that matter are the ones that are listed in the Munitorum Field Manual. The points in the Codex are totally meaningless. Those are there so if someone gets a pre-release copy, they have points values to play with, but they should not be taken as the final points value. It is likely that we see, like over the weekend or this coming week, we will see an update to the Field Manual that has a corrected list of points, and at that point we'll see actually how strong the army is. So, like, you know, we'll couch our doomsaying for at least a couple days until we see how expensive it is. But my hope is that, and this, like, I think that these combos that are built into the faction are really cool, right? I like that we can play a Phoenix Lord who jumps out and like does a bunch of damage and does all these wombo combos. It's also important to note also that that's a once per game. The Aspect Shrine token anyway is a once per game ability. So while we can, and also the Devastating is, so he gets that one time, and if he flubs it, he doesn't do anything, right? He's just an infantry sweeper. What was I going to say? But my hope is that the Codex has a lot of this really cool stuff, but it is costed to the point that your army is very elite. And if they can balance that fine line where we're playing like 25 dudes, but all of them are like these crazy ninjas, I think it's going to be awesome. I'm hoping that it's appropriate, but we'll see once we have the final numbers. So Baharroth can, going back to what we were talking about, he can hop in. And he can, when he uppy downies, he basically hands your opponent 4 saving throws. They are, I believe, only AP1 saving throws, though. So I don't know how excited we are about this dude. He's not really doing that much damage to begin with. He's like okay in melee as well. He attaches into Swooping Hawks, and something that's definitely kind of a big deal is that the Swooping Hawks have lost their natural uppy downy. If we're playing in a detachment that has an up down, the Swooping Hawks will regain it. So like we're playing Battlehost, for example, and we can webway tunnel them, or Warhost, I should say, and we can webway tunnel them around the battlefield, and they can keep deep striking. That's great. Otherwise, they need Baharroth to up down, and they don't have a Fire and Fade unless we're playing in Warhost. So Warhost feels like it might be the place for them to live. They can up, down, go like do a maneuver, act secondary, and then Fire and Fade behind a building. You're using your Fire and Fade on them though, and they're like, his ability only affects himself, I believe, right? Yeah, each time he makes a ranged attack, he auto criticals. So the Swooping Hawks are handing your opponent like, I don't know, some number of like AP 0 saves or whatever. They have a little bombing effect too, but honestly, like this unit is not blowing my mind right now. It seems like it's just pretty good, I guess. If Bobby G and 3 Repulsor Executioners aren't the best army, the internet gets mad. Alright. That said, the other Phoenix Lords look pretty good. Fuegan is great. He extends your range by 6 inches. We talked about him when his datasheet was originally previewed. He extends your range by 6 inches, and he regenerates himself. He has a melt to 6 weapon, so as long as he's joined to a unit, he melts to 6 at 12. So you can jump out of reserve and be in melta range already, which is phenomenal. And then the Fire Dragon unit that he joins into are full hit, wound, and damage rolls against rerolls against monsters and vehicles. Their base fusion guns are only range 12, but we get a fire pike on the Exarch, so we have 2 24-inch range melta weapons that out of reserve can be in melta range for Fuegan's gun and for the Fire Dragon gun, which are rerolling everything. If that doesn't kill the target, we're also following up with probably 4 additional fusion guns. These guys are really good against vehicles. Super duper good. We also get an auto 6 on one of our rolls after rolling with the Aspect Shrine token as well. Or we can use the stratagem if we're in the Aspect Warrior Detachment to give them like sustain lethal for the cost of our Aspect Shrine token, which means that these guys just can like once per game Fire Discipline combo. Which is, I don't know, it's really good. They're going to kill the shit out of a Land Raider or something. Again, that's the unit plus the Phoenix Lord, so it's probably a pretty hefty investment, but it does feel extremely strong. We already kind of discussed all of that, though. Lhykhis, we also discussed, but it's worth talking about her here. She has her twin-linked Ignore Cover Torrent, String 6 AP2, 1 damage, that also gives you critical 5-ups against whatever she shoots at for your whole army. So if we are turning on sustained lethal combos, she can do that by herself. In addition, all of the melee attacks for her and your Warp Spider unit have lethal hits. So you're getting, even worst case scenario, Lhykhis runs in, you're able to flicker jump, move 24 inches at the cost of maybe some mortal wounds. Maybe even 26 inches because you can agile maneuver it. Shoot something with her, reroll, get a couple wounds, critical 5-up it, charge it, and then force a bunch of lethals into it. So you're doing like a bunch of damage with that. And then like if it falls back, you can like agile maneuver away and stuff. So it's like a bunch of like really powerful. It's a bunch of like annoying movement stuff. The thing I like about this is that you can also just play her in a more limited capacity, where she is just running around by herself, and you're not taking the whole Warp Spider combo, and she's applying the 5+ critical hits to other things, so that your like Dire Avengers, when they're getting their sustained hits, can critical on 5s. When you're using the stratagem for sustained and or lethal on out of the Aspect Shrine, you can cause them to critical on 5s. I think it's interesting that she has like 2 potential play modes where you can play her in this really aggressive Warp Spider unit that pushes really far and does some damage and then engages everything, or you can play her like as a lone operative, like not literally a lone operative, but like a singleton individual unit who runs around by herself and force multiplies your army. I think that's really cool. She also can just like critical 5-up herself and attack you 10 times. And that's also really good. So, yeah, we talked about her already and Warp Spiders because we got all that showcased. Now we can see that there is a lot of critical manipulation inside the faction. So she really meshes well into everything else because we have a lot of access to interesting criticals everywhere else. And she improving the criticals is really powerful. Whether or not she's like costed appropriately to act as that really aggressive unit that's probably going to die on the crackback, or being a utility unit, who knows? But we'll have to see once the points values come out. Super strong, super duper duper strong. Plus they get to like kill an infantry unit on the way in because they shoot flamers at it. Her move by herself, yeah, it's range 12, and she's moved 12 and it's range 12. You can push it to move 14. Like if she's by herself, because she doesn't flicker jump, right? That's the point. If she's by herself, I don't think you're not playing her as aggressively. So the fact that she doesn't move like 1,000 inches doesn't really matter. She's like a unit that you're gonna pocket into midboard terrain, and then she's gonna like pop out and shoot something, and then like try not to die and fade away or something like that. Or you're gonna fire and fade her, or I don't, you're gonna do something, to try to keep her alive. Would be the alternative playstyle in my opinion, if you're just using her as a support thing. But, like, she's probably too expensive for that to be relevant, so I don't know. We'll see. Jain Zar. Jain Zar is, it feels like kind of maybe back to her old glory here. We'll see. I don't know. So, the entire Howling Banshee aspect is basically keyed almost like single-mindedly, and I really like this because we have found a way to separate Howling Banshees from Striking Scorpions. In the past, like the thing that always happened was that Howling Banshees and Striking Scorpions occupied the same design space, and then one of them would be better statted than the other one between editions, and so like you would see all of one aspect or all of the other aspect, and you would never see both of them. What they've done is that they've very specifically oriented Howling Banshees to being fast and good at killing armored infantry. Striking Scorpions are forward operators that are good at killing light infantry. And those are the two distinct capabilities of the two aspects, which I do think hopefully will help differentiate them a little bit. So Jain Zar, the Howling Banshees can advance and charge. Jain Zar auto 6s your advances. You can buff that with the Swift as the +2 movement ability, so they can move 10 inches with an auto 6, so 16 and then charge. They are all in addition anti-infantry 3. So regardless, even if they're punching into Terminators or whatever, they're all going to be winning everything on 3s. She's coming in with 8 AP3 2 damage attacks. The rest of the unit has a bunch of high AP 2 damage attacks as well. You also get to ignore vertical distance, which is like kind of cute too. So you can like jump over, like I don't know, you could jump over like Mutatorb crates or whatever. Like eat your heart out, like the WTC crates that are in the middle of the table. Like they'll run over those, I guess. Jain Zar also rerolls wound rolls against characters, which is kind of cute too. She's probably wounding them on 3s most of the time anyway. She's also not precision, like weirdly, I guess. So she's just trying to kill you through your unit or whatever. But I don't know, pretty good. You're probably wounding on 3s. Rerolling means you like convert almost all of your wound rolls, which is good. The Howling Banshee aspect, you can advance, fall back, and charge with them, as I mentioned before, and we're auto-6ing that charge, so again, we could potentially move up to 16 inches and run all in there. They have an improved invulnerable save against melee attacks, which I actually just noticed, which is kind of cute. And they get They're interestingly low attack volume, which does feel a little inconsistent for Banshees, but they're anti-infantry 3. So base Howling Banshees are 2 attacks at weapon skill 2. If you're on the aspect warrior detachment, they're getting reroll once to hit. So they probably get like hit all of their attacks. And then they also are anti-infantry 3. So regardless of what your toughness is, they're wounding you on 3s unless they're punching into big stuff. In which case, we're assigning them wrong, and we should have killed that thing with Asurmen or Fire Dragons first. The Exarch can either have um 4 2-damage attacks or 3 3-damage attacks. All of its anti-infantry 3 as well. If you take the 3-damage attacks, then like it also becomes better at punching and bigger stuff. So I don't know. And then they also get the once per game auto 6 on a hit, wound, or a hit or wound roll with their aspect shrine, which you will probably use on, I don't know, a buff, I guess, a fight on death probably. Once they go in there, they also fight first. And like we talked about, if you put an Autarch in the unit, the Autarch fights first too. But again, these ladies are really, really keyed towards like clipping heavy infantry with the like high toughness infantry, high toughness, high save characteristic infantry is what they want to be fighting. They're okay into like medium stuff, but they don't have that many attacks unless you take like the star, the throwing star on the Exarch, I guess. Then she shoots 9 times. She has 9 total attacks. But they're only 1 damage at strength 3, so. And then the last of the Phoenix Lords. Scorpions will now be the one without a Phoenix Lord. Wonder how it will affect them. Yeah, I think Scorpions become more of a utility piece. We'll talk about Scorpions in a sec. We'll talk about Maugan Ra first, and then we'll dive into Scorpions. Because Maugan Ra he's basically doing the Asurmen thing. He's another devastating guy with 6 attacks. It's actually like it's kind of funny how similar he feels to Asurmen. But he does his thing at like 36 inches away rather than 24, and he does it every turn. So Maugan Ra is kind of weird. His leadership ability is fucking horrible. It's really bad. You get it's called what's the version? Malevolent Arcing. You get Malevolent Arcing as your leadership. So after you select a unit that you hit with the attacks from your unit, on a 5+, it takes D3 additional mortal wounds after you shot it, and you also roll for everybody within 3 inches of the target. And on a 5+, they will also take D3 mortal wounds. It's not a very good ability. It averages like 0.7 of an additional damage into your original target, and your opponent is able to play around it for it doing additional, like more damage than that. It's not that hard to play around. It mostly affects people really badly when they forget about it. But like whatever, you can do it out of indirect fire with your Tempest Launcher, which is like kind of cute, but I don't know how often you're going to be doing that. He also forces a battle shock check on an enemy after he shoots them. So like his ability section might as well be blank. Like the mortal wound thing is cute. It might do some additional damage, but it's not all like it's not very relevant most of the time. We're basically entirely taking Maugan Ra for the fact that he has a 36-inch range devastating weapon. See, that's Maugan Ra's entire contribution to the fight. And listen, if the cost is right for this guy, a range 36 devastating weapon is just fine. Because, again, we can put Dark Reapers into a Falcon and give them wound rerolls. He also, just like Asurmen, benefits from the Aspect Shrine token. So, unlike Asurmen, his weapon's only 2 damage, but it devastates every single turn. So we can hop them out of a Falcon, fire Maugan Ra at the target, or fire the Falcon at the target, plink it for fire support, fire Maugan Ra, get ourselves reroll once to hit. He's probably converting all his hit rolls, and then he's handing his opponent 6 devastating damage. And then you shoot them with 5 missile launchers, and they probably die. And the difference is that the only part of that sequence that is a 1-use only is specifically the Aspect Shrine token. If we use that for something else, or we don't need it, then we're just probably averaging 4 to 5 devastating damage from Maugan Ra. It's like 5-ish, I guess, if you spike up. But realistically, you can expect like somewhere around 4. In addition to shooting with probably 3 ignore cover strength 10 AP2 multi-damage shots with wound rerolls. Excuse me, 5, not 3, 5. It's 4 Reaper launchers, which are strength 10 AP2 3 damage, plus 1 missile launcher, which is strength 10 AP2 D6 damage. Or he just takes a Reaper launcher too. Or you just take a Blood Tempest launcher, like who cares? That's probably more expensive than it's worth, but it is cool that we can just peek in the back and like consistently clip our opponent for a bunch of mortal wounds every turn. I guess realistically, you could just take Maugan Ra by himself. He doesn't actually need the unit. The unit just gives more shooting and like more efficiency to the fire support ability. But like Maugan Ra as a devastating guy is like probably okay too. I don't know. He's not quite as exciting or spiky as any of the other Phoenix Lords, though. He feels like he's kind of in the same spot as Baharroth, where he's like doing a weird utility thing, but it doesn't really feel like it's worth probably a whole expensive epic hero character. Asuryani top tier. It feels to me like Asuryani and Lhykhis are... Asuryani, Lhykhis, and Fuegan feel like they're somewhere around the same tier. Asuryani is really spiky, but his ability is only once per game, and it requires him to be next to you. And it requires some setup. Like, Fuegan's unit can just come out of Strategic Reserve and dumpster a tank without any help, right? And Lhykhis is like just can do, you know, a bunch of different things. And then, like, I don't know, Jain feels really good because you get a really fast, aggressive unit. Maugan Ra feels like fine. Maugan Ra and Baharroth feel like totally okay, I guess. Actually, Baharroth feels like the worst one, which is a little bit weird. And maybe that's rating him too low, but I imagine he's going to be expensive for just a guy who shoots okay. Which Aspect Warriors are worth it without their Phoenix Lords? That's a great question. I actually think all of them are. Maybe not Howling Banshees. Like, it depends on how much you want, like, AP2 anti-infantry attacks. This feels like a weird profile that Eldar, I don't know, are going to, like, be in the need of. Like, half of their melee weapons, wound infantry on 3s, and our AP2 are higher, like, just generically across the faction. So this aspect doesn't feel particularly strong unless you're like a delivery system for Jain who's a fucking blender. So I don't know if Howling Banshees are going to be played so often by themselves. Dark Reapers just shoot good. Like, I don't know, that's fine. Warp Spiders are good utility. Swooping Hawks are probably still good utility because they just move 14. If they're not super pricey, Swooping Hawks are still going to see play just because they're fast. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're uppy-downing or whatever. They can just run over. Like, listen, I play Screamers. There's just a Screamer unit that shoots instead of charging. It's, like, the same. Dire Avengers are good infantry sweepers. Fire Dragons are always good against tanks. So, like, it feels like they're all pretty good outside of, like, maybe Howling Banshees. Let's talk about Striking Scorpions real quick, and then we can dive into Shining Spears, because Shining Spears are kind of like they're a whole can of worms. So Striking Scorpions are like the dedicated infantry killers, at least in melee, but they also, so here's an important combination of abilities. They are Infiltrate, Scout, 7, Stealth. So they are just like the superlative forward operators in the faction. They're Space Marine Scouts that punch really good. And listen, Space Marine Scouts, already good. Striking Scorpions, probably just similarly powerful Space Marine Scouts. And that's a really good place to be. If you're comparing yourself to a Space Marine Scout favorably, you're probably a good unit. They get critical 5-ups in when they charge, which only matters for the Striking Scorpions in the unit. They don't have any characters that this is relevant for, unfortunately. It'd be cool if you could put like an Autarch in them who had like a critical weapon, but none of the Autarch melee weapons are critical, I don't believe. I guess if you take his chainsword, then it's sustained on 5s, which is whatever. It doesn't matter for the multi-damage weapons, though, on the Autarch. Inky's, like, freaking out over here right now. A demanding cat. Each Striking Scorpion gets 4 attacks, a Strength 4, AP 1, Sustained hits 1. If you're in the Aspect Detachment, they hit on 3s, rerolling 1s. You're probably averaging, like 4.5 hits out of each attack if you're rerolling. So a unit of 5 guys, just based on the 4 regular chainsword guys, is probably hitting like 18 times or so with Strength 4. So if we're clipping into like T3 infantry, they are just gonna fucking kill them super hard. Then the Exarch on top of that, either has an AP3 sword or the Claw, which is Strength 8, AP2, 2 damage. It's a Power Fist, but it doesn't have Sustain. Or 2 swords, which is 5 attacks and Twin Linked. So they're going to blend their infantry. I think the real reason that you're taking them is that, and you can also Aspect Shrine, I guess, for an automatic hit roll, so we can auto sustain like the Exarch sword attack, which is cool. But what am I saying? I think the real reason we're taking them is the combination of Infiltrate, Scout 7, because that's a really powerful set of effects. That gives you tons of midboard presence, basically in any variety of Eldar that you're playing. So as long as these guys are like sub, like 85 points, you're gonna see like 2 of them in every list. If they're like 90 or above, you might see 3. You might see 1. But if they are reasonably costed at all, these guys are going to be everywhere just because they're such useful utility. And that's good. You can also, like, you never forget the fact that you can draw your cards, be like, oh, I have to get to the middle of the table to do actions. I guess my guys will become, like, move 10 if I'm in Warhost, and then go do actions by themselves after a 7-inch scout. Like, their ability to maneuver around the table is crazy in the early game. So they're probably just going to be played for the fact that they're really, really good forward operators. Doesn't Baharroth make Hawks crit unsuccessful hits? No. Baharroth himself crits unsuccessful hits. So you're handing your opponent 4 2 damage saves from him, most likely. Which is, like, totally fine. Like I said, it's not bad. But it's not... Like, I don't know how often he's gonna, like... flip the game on its head because he has killed 2 Space Marines with his gun. It's if you don't have an armor save, it's like kind of nutty actually. It's really, really annoying. Like demons are just gonna like fall apart, dude. What? What do you mean you just gave me 4 saves on my invul? I hate this. Stop it! Ah! How many sustained hits on the biting blade? I can't tell. It kind of looks like it could be a 3, but I think it's a 1. I think it's a really compressed 1. Because the Scorpion Chainsword is a 1 and looks kind of similar. I'm going to assume it's 1 and then we can go from there. Maybe it's 3 and the Biting Blade's really good. But it's Strength 6 AP 3, which is like the real reason you're taking it. It's just really, it's like much more consistent at clipping through armored stuff than the Chainswords are. If it's sustained hits 3, then it's fucking phenomenal, because you're going to Aspect Shrine it, and it's going to do a bunch of damage, but it's hard to see. Sustained hits 5. Clearly a 5. You're like, I rolled 1 6. Reroll 1s into another 6. Aspect Shrine, the third 6. Take 15. 15 wound rolls. Let's go. Disgusting. Could be 8. Yeah, let's let's reach for the stars, chat. What if it's sustained hits 9? The highest number, the highest single digit integer we can get. Reddit as 3? Yeah, it could be 3. I would expect it to be 1, because it looks very similar to the other ones, right? When you zoom out, like the collection of pixels looks almost identical. But it could be 3. Enhance. Enhance. All right. Let's talk about Shining Spears, chat, because I think Shining Spears are the... Who is that? Is Zato-san in chat? We were talking about, hey, why are Shining Spears crazy good? Let's talk about it. So top line profile, they're Biker Eldar, right? They're just T4, 3 plus A, 5 plus invuln, 2 wounds. However, that will very rarely matter before they get into the fight, because each time they make a normal, advance, fallback, or charge move, they get to ignore any vertical distance when determining their total distance, or their total movement. So, you can be behind a ruin wall, and you can go, hey, I'm going to Swift as the Wind, plus between 2 and 3 additional movement. Then, I'm playing Windrider host. I'm going to say advance and charge, and then I'm going to move these guys between 17 and 22 inches directly through the wall. And then I'm going to charge you. That's fucking wild. That wouldn't be so crazy if their damage output was not very good. But but wait, it's really good. Each one of them is carrying a twin shuriken catapult, so we have a twin link strength 4 weapon. The Exarch can have a shuriken cannon, which you almost certainly will, I guess. He also gets a shimmer shield, so he's just a 4+ invulnerable save. I guess there's no reason not to do that. And then each dude also shoots a strength, I believe this is 9, strength 9 AP3 3 damage gunshot with assault at 6 inches. Or excuse me, that's the special one. So each dude is firing strength 6 AP2 3 damage. The strength in AP is not that great, but it is 3 damage, and we're getting between 2 and 5 of these in the shot. So we might clip in for 3 damage on our target before we get in there. The Star Lance is strength 9 AP3 instead. Then we get into melee. Each model is attacking 3 times its strength 5 AP2 flat 3. And the Exarch, if he takes the Star Lance, which he probably is strength 5 AP3 flat 3 with 4 attacks. They are Lance, so they're strength 5 Lance, which means basically almost any infantry in the game they're wounding on 2s, or maybe 3s. Gravis stuff is like 4s. If you're really, really hefty. Big, like, mounted is the one downside for them, because if you're, like, T8 or T9 mounted, they're wounding you only on 4s, but you're probably still gonna die. The, like, big high toughness stuff, however, they have anti-monster, anti-vehicle 3. So, generally speaking, outside of, like, literally Gravis Space Marines and like demon chariots, they're wounding almost everything in the game on 3s or better, right? And they don't have an aspect shrine token, which is a little bit funny, but they're at the very least coming in with, if you're taking a full unit of them, right? They're coming in with 19 attacks, rerolling 1s somewhere in there. If you're playing aspect shrine, or you may have another buff elsewhere. So, like, worst case scenario, you're like handing your opponent like somewhere around 9 or 10 AP2 and AP3 3 damage saves against almost any target in the game, if you're taking the full unit. Which means, like, we should expect to see this full unit be very expensive. And again, they have incredible maneuverability, right? They have the capacity, if they are staged correctly, to basically hit anywhere on the table. As long as you're not, like, screened or movement blocked. So, their ability to, like, get these attacks on target is phenomenal. They might run into some problems with, like, 2+ save AOC. It's not like the faction doesn't have other answers to that like specific profile. So there's like some like profile matchups that they might fall short in. But really, what you're paying for with this unit, and the reason I think they should be expensive, is the fact that they have like total control over the ability to hit wherever they need to at almost any time, which is incredible, absolutely super powerful. So if this unit ends up being like, if they come down at like 35 points a model, you're going to see 6 of these guys in every, or like, you know, between 12 and probably 18 of these guys in every list, because they're just going to be able to like cycle constant attacks into you that are super high value. That's my discussion. Does the Codex contain Drukhari? It does. Once we get to the Ynnari detachment, we will discuss those guys. I forget unattached Tyrant Guard. Oh, that's true. Of course. The Tyrant Guard without a Hive Tyrant in them. Then they will be wounding it on 4s. Yes, of course. We have to find a T10 mounted unit somewhere for them to wound on 5s. I'm sure that exists. Maybe a fortification. Is there a non-vehicle fortification somewhere that's T10? Like if they try to stab a bunker, do they have a tough time? You don't think you'd see 2 units of 6? I feel like we'd see 2 units of 6. The Exarch model seems strong? Yeah, it could be that they become an Exarch delivery system. He is just a regular dude with +1 attack and +1 AP, I guess. Come here, cat. No. Ooh, we're not going to do that thing where we go and knock over the camera. A Disco Lord? Is he a vehicle? He's mounted, right? He used to be a vehicle, but I guess he changed that. But they're T8, right? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how expensive they end up being. But like it feels like, you know, I think in a lot of layouts, right, especially US Open, there's an L terrain feature somewhere around the middle of the table where you can run a unit and then like blast them into your opponent and blow something up. Like run around, do a bunch of like chicanery, and then reload that ruin with the second unit. And it feels like that play pattern could be very, very valuable with these Shining Spears. But I don't know, we'll see. Again, if they're really expensive, probably not the case. But if they're super cheap, I think people will make the big units work. Yeah, the fact they can go 16 to 17 inches through walls is goated. Yeah, for sure. That's the real reason they're super powerful, in my opinion. Like the fact that they have a really their weapon profile is really good into a lot of stuff. So which makes them relevant and makes it relevant the fact that they can get that weapon profile into the target. But again, it comes down to points value, right? Like if they're really expensive, then it's going to be fine. But if they're super cheap, then fuck it, who cares? You're gonna take a bunch of them. Did I play Harlequin on Play on Tabletop? Like, have I played on Play on Tabletop? I've never played on Play on Tabletop before. But I am a white guy with a beard. So, one thing that you'll find is that there are a lot of us in Warhammer 40,000, and we all look the same. So... Damage 3 is something Eldar likes so much? Yeah, not anymore. Now everything's damage 3. Now we got damage 3 coming out of our pointy ears. Our long pointy ears. So those are the Aspect Warriors, chat. And I believe that concludes our discussion on the Asuryani detachments. The detachments. We have talked about all of the, I think it's 4, right? I guess 5 once you include Armored Warhost, right? There's Warhost, Seer Council, the one with the Wraith constructs, this Guardian one, Aspect Warriors. So 5. 5 Asuryani detachments that are focused on the Craft World Eldar. Aspect Host feels super duper strong, and I think that Warhost is also very strong. The other ones have like cool stuff going on that I think a really good player is going to make use of, but they don't feel quite as right in your face. Oh, Windrider host. So there's 6. We talked about 6 detachments. Excuse me. That one does feel really strong too. Windrider host actually feels like it could be really good. Probably depending on how expensive Windriders are. But now it's time to dive into some of the other detachments. Which one should we start with, chat? Should we talk about Harlequins or should we talk about Ynnari first? Also, we get to appreciate Inky's big fuzzy coat, or fuzzy winter coat. Harlequins first. Oh yeah, literally everyone said Harlequins. Okay. Damned Legion said Corsairs. It's got to be different over there. I see how it is. All right, let's talk about Harlequins. So before we talk about Harlequin, actually, we'll talk about the detachment real quick. And then we'll talk about all the data sheets. So, the Harlequin detachment is interesting because all of the character data sheets, or most of the character data sheets, I should say, I guess the pivotal role data sheets, say you can only include one of this unit in your army. However, the Harlequin detachment says you can include more, up to 3, like a regular field allowance of Death Jesters, Shadow Seers, and Troop Masters. Death Jesters now don't have an exclusive gun ability. We'll talk about it once we get to their data sheet. So taking multiple of them is actually kind of useful. Troop Masters in duplicate might be okay too. We'll talk about that in a sec. Shadow Seers are, I don't know, maybe you take a couple for utility, but taking 3 of them doesn't feel that strong. In addition, your troop units gain OC characteristic 2 in our battle line units. Fucking great. I think that this is probably gonna need to get eroded. I don't know if they need to update this to the new wording that the Grotsmith detachments get, where they become OC2 when they're battle shocked, because I don't know if that becomes a characteristic replacement effect and allows them to hold objectives while they're battle shocked. That might need to get a day one FAQ. There's a couple of those in here that might be broken. We'll find out once they come in and discuss that. Not sure. I might sneeze again also. Sec. We'll discover in a sec. Yep. Nope, we didn't sneeze. All right. The detachment ability. So we get one detachment ability that gives us super good Harlequin Troopers. The other detachment ability lets us charge through enemy models. For whatever reason, flip belts give you like a weird fly equivalent, but don't let you move through models unless you're in the Harlequin detachment. I'm going to be real with you. This detachment ability, I'm sure it's better than I'm giving it credit for, but it feels totally fucking worthless. It doesn't let you move through enemy models on any other kind of move. It is specifically charge moves. If, as we'll talk about in a sec, you could do so on pile-in and consolidate moves, that would be fucking rad. But, like, I don't know. This feels like one of the worst detachment abilities in the game. That being the case, that's probably fine because our stratagems are pretty good. So that's not the end of the world. I'm sure someone will come up with a corner case where this ability is really good, but I don't know. It feels like it's not that great. Inky's so fluffy I could die. It's so fluffy! Can't block a charge by being 1.1 inches away. I mean, I guess so. Or being inside a wall? Well, you can't. It's hard to wall screen Harlequins because they're 25 mil base anyway. So being 1.1 inches away also doesn't, like, I guess blocks a charge if you are literally like physically blocked out. But the situations in which that's going to matter feel so narrow because I don't know. I think they're just going to shoot you and you're going to lose the unit in the front. Like, it's an Eldar army. It's not like we're not going to be able to kill some infantry models. It's important to note as well too that like this is a Harlequin army, but you can still take Asuryani stuff. They just don't get any benefits, but you're just playing like normal Eldar guys. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like this Asurmen combo or whatever, you can still just play it. There's no restriction against that. You don't have to take only Harlequin units. You just get to take more Harlequin units than you could normally. So we can still play a bunch of the other units in the Codex that are really good at killing infantry. If we really wanted to play ourselves like a really aggro, like melee troop build. I got a runny nose, chat. I apologize ahead of time if I get a little sniffly. Apparently I've been sneezing all day. It's really dry over here, so I think the dryness gets to me. Enhancements. Shegarak's Coil is a Troop Master enhancement. It gives you like an impact attack. You just get Hammer of Wrath for your unit. It's totally fine. Mask of Secrets forces your opponent to take desperate escape checks when they fall back from you, excluding monsters and vehicles. Who gives a shit? Death Gesture. This is a cool one. Each time you make an attack that targets a unit that is below half strength, so units that are almost dead, every successful hit roll scores a critical hit. And we can give them sustained hits 3 like we could in the previous version. So you could be like, you're down to just a couple of Space Marines in your unit, the Death Gesture hands you 12 saves, and you're like, this fucking sucks, and then you die. That's rad. Last and not least, Mistweave, the Shadow Seer enhancement gives their unit Infiltrators. Pretty good if Shadow Seers end up being kind of cheap, which I hope they will, because their abilities are not very exciting. What is exciting, however, are the stratagems. So let's talk about those. Let me my viewer over a little so we can actually see them. Here we go. We're starting really strong because the first one's super good. It lets you respawn Harlequin characters. It's Resurrection Protocols almost exactly. At the end of the phase, they set back up on the battlefield as close as possible. So if you charge your opponent and kill a bunch of their stuff, and your opponent comes back in and charges you back and kills you in the fight phase, you pay a CP, your character bounces out of combat, and then charges back in and kills them. The lore justification is very funny. He just pretended to be dead. fucking incredible. Peak Harlequin energy right there. This is great. Also, you have a bunch of, like, if you have Jesters and Solitaires running around, they can, I assume that they are all characters. You can never tell with these guys, but they can, like, if your opponent gets in on the lone op, you can respawn them too. If they don't have a good charge on you. It's just a good stratagem. These are good stratagems to have. They're always good. It's just good. It's just good. I don't know, chat. Just good. Heroes Fall. 1 CP, you get a 4+ fight on death. Solid. Especially because this is an aggressive melee detachment. We're running in and throwing a bunch of Harlequin Troopers at our opponents, and then you can fight on death. That's great. It's really cheap as well. We potentially have CP regeneration in the faction because we can tag Eldrad in this detachment. It's just good. Mocking Flight, you can fall back, shoot, and charge. Also just good. These are basically nothing in the detachment is... Well, I got Inky's hair in my mouth. God damn it. Is bad. It's all like really, really useful stuff to have access to. So I have no notes so far. Trickster's Retort, a 6-inch reactive move in response to an enemy unit that moves within 9 inches of you. It's troop units only, so it is a little bit more restrictive, but this lets you re-embark into transports and stuff. This is a really strong ability. Note, again, like, these stratagems are all good to have. Bloody Dance. This is a really important one to discuss. We also, I guess we'll talk about this real quick. We have an uppy downy for any Harlequin unit that goes into Strategic Reserve. I believe that all of the Harlequin units are just on the ground, so they will just come in off the table edges, but we have an up-down just like built into the faction. Very nice. We can use it on Starweavers, we can use it on Void Weavers, we can use it on Sky Weavers, we can use it on troop units, we can use it on lone op characters, we can use it on anything. As long as you're not within engagement range, you can pop them out into reserve and then hop them back down and do actions and stuff. Really, really good. This one is maybe super crazy. You use it on infantry or mounted units, so it's not the vehicles. It's at the end of your opponent's charge phase, so it's kind of like the reactive effects that we've seen in, like, Blood Legion, for example. Or the Lion's Blade Task Force, I think, has this exact stratagem. You target... you have to be within 6 inches of an enemy model and are eligible to declare that model as a charge target. The effect is that you charge them. So it is a heroic intervention, but doesn't require your opponent to charge you. If your opponent does charge you, you have, like, fight on deaths and respawns and shit. So we have reactive stuff to do if they charge you. If they don't charge you, we could just make sure that it happens by charging them first. Sick. Okay. We can also set this up by using the reactive move. Got a bunch of troops up in our opponent's, like, the middle of our opponent's army. He's going to move up to charge one of them. Suddenly, there's another one within 6 inches of them who can then charge at the end of their charge phase. And let me tell you, chat, as we'll discuss in a moment, Harlequin Troopers are lethal to basically everything. We'll see how expensive they are. If they're very expensive, they might not be super efficient. But if they are cheap enough that we can do a little bit of spamming, oh my god. This detachment's going to do so many mortal wounds, you're not going to know what hit you, and you're just going to be stabbed to death a bunch of times and die. So I guess, like, maybe this acrobatic thing has like a little bit of utility when we're using the anti-charge thing, the charge thing on our opponent's turn. It feels to me like it's kind of a do nothing of a detachment ability. The detachment ability is that we get a bunch of Harlequins, but we just get 6 like super solid stratagems, right? Which is pretty good. The other important thing to note is that the Harlequin stuff, generally speaking, doesn't benefit from any of the other detachments. So, if we wanted to play a bunch of Harlequins and do a bunch of Harlequin stuff with them, we have to be playing the Harlequin detachment, because most of the other ones say, like, Asuryani or are keyed to specific units. So most of the other detachments have no Harlequin synergy. Although I think Harlequins are good enough, as we'll discuss in a moment, that you probably can just play them in any detachment and they just do their thing once per game and then they explode. Let's talk about what they do. Wah. If you fail a 6-inch charge, you can force it. Like if they fail a 6-inch charge, yeah, if their opponent comes to charge you and they fail, then you can charge them instead. The downside is that it has the heroic intervention clause where you don't get the charge bonus, so you don't get fight first. But it means but that's like neither here nor there. So they would basically like still get the opportunity to. It's basically like they're charging you. Well, I guess if they don't charge you, you're fighting before them, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, if they don't charge you, then you get to punch them. So yes. To answer your question, yes. It is end of your opponent's charge phase though, so you can't, like for example, fail a charge and then like end of my charge phase, like oh I'll try again. That's not how it works. It has to be your opponent's turn. Yeah. Do they get battle focus? Yeah, the Harlequin stuff all has battle focus. Oh, just kidding. No. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Sorry, I read the core abilities for a second. I was like, oh no, it's not there. No, it's there. Yeah. So we can extend movement and we can do reactive moves and stuff. So you can also do like the opportunity seize too, right? Where your opponent like falls back from you and you're like, I'll move d6+1 to be within 6 inches, and then end of your turn, I'll charge you. Yeah, I don't know. The fucking movement shenanigans in this detachment are wild, dude. Absolutely wild. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about their data sheets. Skyweavers. I think they're largely unchanged. I don't believe anything is different. They're -1 to be hit from all attacks, which is cool. They have battle focus. They're move 14, 3 wounds, a 4+ invulnerable save. Basically the same as they have been in the past. Super fast, good shooting, good melee. If they have the glaive, they're strength 6, AP 2 damage. Oh, I think they went up a. Actually, the glaive profile is much better, right? The old Skyweaver was like strength 4, AP 1, 2 damage. Is it? Am I crazy? I feel like that's actually like literally twice as good as it used to be. Maybe I'm an insane person. The Zephyr Glaive feels really good there. I'm gonna verify myself real quick. I'm gonna look at their old data sheet. But then they also can have the anti-vehicle devastating gun with 2 shots or a shuriken cannon, just like pretty solid shooting. And you can speed them up with Swift as the Wind. Void Weaver. The Void Weaver, interestingly, has an 18-inch lone operative effect. Old Zephyr Glaive was... Oh, Strength 5, AP 1. So yeah, they gained a Strength and an AP. Fucking holy shit, okay. One thing that's really obvious about this codex, by the way, chat, between this and the Space Marine update, it feels like Games Workshop really took to heart like the criticism that 10th edition was like too slow and tanky, because like, oh my god, literally everything has higher damage now. It sucks if you're an old codex or an index faction and are stuck in like the weird like doldrums of having like early 10th edition stats where you're like a Tyranid codex and you're like, all my stuff is like fucking strength 8 AP 2, and then you look at Eldar and like Marines are like, hey, I'm twin linked +1 to wound with my whole army, and Eldar are like, I'm AP 3 damage with everything. Yeah, I don't know. So Void Weavers can't be attacked outside 18 inches. That makes them a really good utility unit. They also just have like baked in, have stealth as well. So they're kind of hard to pin down, and they're good at just holding objectives from the back line. Really good. Plus, they have a nice little 4 damage gun. Losing battle host rerolls on them is like a little sad, but being able to not be shot with an 18 is really good too. So they're just gonna hold down objectives and stuff and be good. I think they're good in Elmstone Detachment realistically. Just this ability is solid. Starweavers. I don't think are really changed, but they do have the Venom ability. So you can re-embark into them at the end of the fight phase. Pretty good, but they can only carry Harlequin stuff. Although we are probably running a bunch of Harlequin guys into the middle of our opponent's army and then re-embarking them, which is pretty good. Just call out Votann by name. I mean, Votann, yeah, like every index faction. Like, if you're an index faction, your weapon profiles are bad. I'll say it. They're not good. If you compare them to the stuff that's now coming out, like, these things are crazy. All right, we'll discuss the lone operative stuff real quick here. The Death Jester has lost his devastating damage, probably for the best. He has to choose ignore cover on his gun, which is a little bit awkward. But he's lone operative, strength 6, AP 2, 2 damage. He can do his sustained hits 3 if he wants to. And like we talked about, he gets if you do give him the enhancement, he can get automatic criticals on all of his shots against enemies below half strength. So you can just be hitting like 12 times against like something that's almost dead, which is like means he's just really good at finishing them off. I think if he's in the detachment, he's very good for just being the last guy to shoot in your shooting phase and just like clipping people out. Solitaire, I think, is relatively unchanged. He's precision, 9 attacks, strength 6, AP 2, 2 damage. He goes up to 12 attacks and goes an additional 2d6 inches. When he blitzes, you can also buff that with the, like, Swift is the Wind if you want to, for example. So he can go to move 14 plus 2d6 and then charge. So he's very fast. Shadow Seer as well. He gives your unit an 18-inch load operative effect. But he doesn't, like, shoot good, and he doesn't punch good, and you can just take a Void Weaver, so, I don't know. The Shadow Seer seems kind of like a miss. He seems actually kind of unplayable, which is a little bit sad. I guess you can take him for the Infiltrator enhancement, and that's probably fine. So we have, like, a unit in the middle of the table. But other than that, he's not that exciting. Alright, we're attaching these into troops. So... Interestingly, a lot of the aspect warriors and the specific unit types got like a keyword that is like their keyword, because we have like sustained hits on the striking scorpions, we have lethal hits on the warp spiders, we have like anti-infantry on the howling banshees. Harlequin Troupes got devastating wounds. Let's go! It's devastating time. All of their melee weapons have devastating, regardless of what it is. It's a power sword. Devastating. Is it a little tiny knife? Devastating. Is it a cool, like, Harlequin's kiss or whatever? Also devastating. Everybody gets devastating all the time. They have, like, a fighting stance they can take at the start of the fight phase, like they're a Blade Guard veteran or a melee bioweapon Tyranid warrior. They choose reroll hit rolls of 1. Probably the one you're going to choose most of the time. They can choose +1 to wound, not reroll 1s to wound. That's important to note, so they don't get extra activations of devastating, but it does make them good at punching into some stuff. Or they can be -1 to be hit in the fight phase, so they can make them tankier. If you're trying to kill people, you're probably rerolling hit rolls, because we're trying to source devastating from them. I think that's like kind of how this unit's working. Or we can just like tie people up and be annoying and make them -1 to be hit. They also still have a 4+ invulnerable save. Importantly, they don't have like a 2 wound lead player anymore, so that's I guess relevant. Great. On top of that, run over to the Troop Master. Interestingly, the Troop Master, he has a really cool leadership ability, but he doesn't really improve their output at all. Instead, he just hits like a fucking truck. If you take the Troop Master's, you can take whatever weapon on him. He is also devastating, and his attacks are 2 damage. So he could take a 6 attack devastating weapon if he wants to. He also gains both of the offensive buffs that the troops have all the time. And in fact, you don't even have to put him into a Harlequin Troupe at all, really. He actually is not even that... If you just play him outside a Harlequin Troupe, I'm actually like... I don't know. You can play him in or out. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Because he just has all the benefits of being in a Harlequin Troupe. He's reroll hit rolls of 1, and he gets +1 to wound permanently all the time, regardless of whether or not he's in a unit. So the Harlequin Troupe can choose whatever they want. And then he's just doing his thing. While he's leading the unit, you get 6-inch pile-in and consolidation. In addition, and this is a weird ability, and someone's going to come out and go on a live stream and do something fucking weird with this ability, and we're going to be like, this is wild. In addition, models in the Troop Master's unit do not need to end pile-in or consolidate moves closer to the closest enemy model, provided it ends as close as possible to the closest enemy unit. So, essentially what this means is that when your models go to pile in or consolidate, if they can base the closest model, they can instead effectively base anyone else in that model's unit that's 6 inches away from them, right? That they can make a 6-inch move towards and tag. This would probably be really dumb if they could move over enemy models. And I wonder if at one point the Harlequin Detachment ability said your Harlequins can move over enemy models, and then they printed this rule and they were like, hold up, these guys are just literally like everywhere now all the time, and this sucks. But you can use this to like artificially extend your pile-in and consolidate moves in a lot of instances. It basically means that almost all the time a Harlequin troop with a Troop Master will get all of its models into melee, almost regardless, right? But there are also going to be instances in which it allows you to engage a ton of enemy units, so that you can like make yourself -1 to be wounded, absorb some damage, and then like move when they fall back, and then try to countercharge them. You can like stop them from shooting you. You could do like a bunch of weird shit with it. And I don't know if my brain is quite big enough to entirely internalize all of the insane things you can do with this ability, but it is really fucking cool. That said, we have to take a Troop Master plus a Harlequin Troop, which is probably going to be expensive. The Troop Master is kind of just like slapped by himself, so I don't know. But here's the kicker, chat. You ready? You ready for how silly this unit gets? We were rolling this out experimentally on stream yesterday. Thought it could get him out of melee. No. You still have to go towards the enemy. So, like, you get 6-inch piling consolidate moves, and you determine how close your model can get to the closest unit using that move. The closest model, I should say, using that moves. Then you go, I'm going to go that far away from any model in that unit within 6 inches. So essentially, the only time at least to my reading, right? The only time it's really relevant is when the model at the start of their pile-in move can base the target and can base someone else in that model, the target model's unit, right? Not target, but like the closest model. So you measure the distance to the closest model. You go, the closest I can get to that model is base contact, but I can also base contact any one of these other 3 or 4 models in that enemy unit. I'm going to go to one of that instead. So it means that like your Harlequin troop's going to charge, like base on the charge, and then everyone else inside that troop is just going to like wrap all the way around the stuff that they're going to go engage. So you're like, your unit like will like glom onto their unit, and then when you consolidate, if they kill the target, which let's be real, there's a pretty reasonable chance that they do, they will like glom onto everybody around them. It makes for like these super bizarre pile and consolidate moves where you have like immense amounts of control over where your guys go to base. Yep, chat. So here's the dumb part. You ready? This is an easy datasheet to find because it's on the last codex. This good old Falcon has retained its fire support. It has the exact same version of fire support that it did previously. Each time a friendly model that disembarked from the transport makes an attack, any attack targeting the enemy unit that you selected as your fire support target, re-roll the wound roll. And the Falcon can embark any Aeldari infantry. The only restriction is that it cannot embark Ynnari models, so we'll get to it in a sec. If you play the Ynnari detachment, this thing is literally worthless. But you can put 6 Harlequin troopers into it. So we can do like Maugan Ra stuff. We can do Asurmen stuff. They get like their auto 6s or whatever. Or You know, maybe that's too much work. We gotta remember what aspect shrine tokens do. We gotta like remember to declare our once per games. The alternative is that we just go to this Harlequin Troop datasheet, and we put a Troop Master with 6 2-damage devastating attacks, and we put 25 devastating attacks worth of Harlequin blades into the transport. So we're attacking 31 times with devastating attacks, and we just reroll our hit rolls of 1, and we full wound reroll, and we fish for devastating, and we average like 12. It's fine, right? And it's not like the unit is going to be, like, really easy to get into, like, melee, right? Because, like, they're only moving, whatever, 10 inches or, like, whatever. And you can stage the Falcons really easily because you can move them to 20 inches, maybe. So, I don't know. It's very good, chat. It's very good. Yeah, I don't know. You have to have a target, I guess, for them. So if your opponent's like really far away, you won't be able to get them. But if the whole brick gets in, like almost regardless of what your charge is, as long as it's successful, if you have a Troop Master, literally everyone's gonna get into melee because it was a funny pile-in thing, and then you're gonna just kill whatever you charged, probably. And then you're gonna engage a bunch of stuff, and then they're gonna fall back, and you're gonna use agile maneuvers to fuck with them. And then you're going to countercharge them on their turn if you're playing the Eldar or the Harlequin Detachment. And then they're going to be like, I die. And you're like, yeah. Enjoy it! Enjoy that. Enjoy being dead. Yeah, these guys seem great, chat. I don't know. And that's assuming that you need a bunch of devastating damage to kill your target, right? If we just play Strength 4 weapons, like, the normal thing is that we can just give them +1 to wound and to devastating, and then, like, hand our opponent, like, you know, we're wounding on 5s or 4s into infantry or whatever. Like, we can full reroll and do weird Falcon combos if we're looking to kill a tank, but if we're just stabbing regular dudes, we're probably handing them, like, 18 saves or something and a bunch of devastating into, like, most infantry units, and, like, killing them the normal way, too. Like, this unit has 31 attacks with +1 to wound. Like, I feel like we'll find a way to get there. We'll see what they cost, chat. That's the real question. Also, I hope this Falcon's like 180 points, because holy shit. Everything in the faction where half the faction feels like it has devastating wounds, full rerolls is really good. Thousand Suns have taught us that lesson, and hopefully Eldar can reinforce it. But it feels like these guys could kill the universe. The other follow-up question is like whether that's better than just like stabbing you with Shining Spears, which have like a similar level of threat range. They're move 14 versus move 8 plus a disembarkation. So like they're faster and they also move through walls. And they just have like better melee attacks versus like doing weird things to fish for devastating. But you could just take both. I don't know. There's like a lot of good melee options in this codex. Clowns might be expensive, indeed. Harlequins and Effects were already good before, now, yeah. Now they're faster and just have devastating ones. Seems good, chap. Grasmus Detachment looks a lot better. Yeah, I guess so. It also, I imagine a lot of the stuff that synergized with the Grasmus Detachment gets legended, though. I don't think the Grasmus Detachment's very exciting, in fairness. Are there ways to sticky objectives? Yeah, there's a couple. They have OBSEC infantry, and there's a OBSEC strat in the Wraith Construct Detachment. Harlequin Troupes don't, though, for example. Ynnari also have a way, which we'll talk about right now. Should we talk about Ynnari? That's a good... Thanks for setting me up, chat. I appreciate that. Oh, it's not in the codex. It's not in the thing. Here we go. Here's my Eldar... My file of Eldar previews. Boom. Now, all of the stuff that we've talked about so far has been pretty cool. However, none of it has quite put the fear of Eldritch Eldar deities into me as much as the Devoted of Ynnari detachment. because its detachment ability is fucking nuts, chat. It's just insane. So let's dive in. Let's talk about it. Boom. This feels kind of like the opposite of the Harlequin Detachment. Its stratagems are, like, pretty good, but I don't know if any of them are, like, they're not, like, blowing my goddamn mind. The Harlequin stratagems are, like, super weird and like, movement-oriented, but its detachment ability is basically blank. The opposite is the case for Devoted of Ynnari. Here's the other thing that this detachment does, however, though. So it has, and I apologize beforehand because all of these screenshots are really, really, really grainy, so we're just going to have to deal with it. And some of these are hard to read. Generally speaking, you cannot include Ynnari in your army, full stop, unless you are playing this detachment. So this ability, Servants of the Whispering God, gives you the ability to include Ynnari units in your detachment, even though they are not Asuryani. In addition, Asuryani units gain the Ynnari keyword. On top of that, you must include either the Yvrain or the Incarn, and one of them must be your Warlord. So this is the only way to play the Ynnari datasheets in the faction. You can no longer play like a Yvrain in a Battlehost with a bunch of other stuff. All of the Ynnari datasheets that we're about to talk about once we get in there are going to be are for this detachment exclusively. In addition, there's that weird thing that we just talked about. We just talked about the Falcon and how fucking sick it is. However, it has this clause where it's unable to transport Ynnari units, which means that if you include a Falcon inside your Devoted of Ynnari detachment, it cannot transport anything. I don't know. That's the same for Wave Serpents, too. However, Ynnari have their own transports, so I don't know if that's intended. It's weird, because there's a exclusion for the Yvrain and the Vicearch. You can put the Vicearch in, like, a Falcon by himself, I guess. And I imagine that might be unintended, but I don't know. Not having Falcons is an appropriate downside, in my opinion, to this detachment, because its other abilities are really good. So what do we get? We get Lethal Intent. This is crazy strong. Actually, all these are strong, so we're just going to talk about them. At the end of your opponent's shooting phase, so after all their attacks are resolved, if one or more Ynnari units from your army were destroyed this phase, select a Ynnari unit from your army. It can make a normal move. So, let's say, for example, I'm like, hey man, I would really like to score Area Denial in the first turn, so I will move 5 Striking Scorpions into the middle of the table, and my opponent goes, excellent, a target. I will kill them. And then you kill them, and at the end of their shooting phase, you go, that's great. Your shooting is done. You can no longer shoot me. I'm now going to move my 6 Shining Spears from the back of my table edge 14 inches directly forward towards your army, and then on my turn, I'm going to move them another 16, and then I'm going to charge you. Hypothetical number 1. Hypothetical number 2. Let's say my opponent goes, yes, the Striking Scorpions are in range. I will attack them, and then I will use my Assault Jump Pack Intercessors to charge and take your home objective. He shoots the Striking Scorpions, and they are unfortunately killed. So that's so sad for this poor Ynnari army. I go, that's great, thank you for your service, Striking Scorpions. Now, the unit that the Jump Pack Assault Intercessors are going to charge are going to, at the end of your shooting phase, move out of charge range of your Jump Pack Assault Intercessors. They're stuck in the middle of the table, and I'm about to kill them. This detachment, this ability, it's fucking wild. All of the things you can do with it are crazy. It's going to require your opponent's brain to melt out of their ears so that they don't accidentally kill things and give you either phenomenal threat range or like, you mess with their charge phase. It's wild. And that's only one of the 3 abilities that we have. Lethal Surge is the next one. After a Ynnari unit from your army performs the Fade Back Agile maneuver, so that's when you get shot, get hit, probably take some casualties, and then pay a Battle Focus token to move D6+1, you can instead make a Lethal Surge. So you make a Surge move instead of a fade back move, and you can move into engagement range of the triggering unit. So instead of just using these abilities to run away, we could also, if we wanted to, use them to move into engagement with our opponent, stop enemies, additional enemies from shooting at us, and also then punch them. Normal surge move stuff. We can pay a battle focus token to surge move towards our opponent, like Horned Berserkers do, like a bunch of other stuff does. Obviously, if we just die, then we won't be able to do that. But if we die, then we trigger Lethal Intent, and we can run our dudes away or do whatever we want. That's all really strong so far. Next up, Lethal Reprisal, and this is kind of the pièce de résistance here. At the start of the fight phase, select one Ynnari unit from your army. It fights first. Okay, it's below starting strength, I guess. That's important. So you can't just do it if they charge you normally, but most of the time you're gonna have control over whether they charge you normally, and if they don't kill you, then you're eligible to fight first. So like, these all work together. It's synergy, chat. That we've unlocked the synergy. If they shoot me and kill me, I move out of charge range. If they shoot me and don't kill me, and then charge me, I fight first. If they shoot me and don't kill me, and are gonna charge me, and I can't move out of charge range, I can engage them first, and then fight first. Like, it's like you have the Ron Swanson card, where you're like, I do whatever I want. I don't know, chat. It's fun. This is like, is this the best detachment ability in 40k? It might be. Does it fight Gladius Task Force? Probably, maybe. Like, what the fuck? Obviously, downside is that we are losing access to a bunch of other Eldar units, as we'll discuss when we get to the data sheets. So it might be fine because we lose a bunch of our like epic heroes and stuff, but we'll see. All right, next up, let's talk about some enhancements. Geese of Ynnead. Seer gains devastating wounds on its Eldritch Storm. That's totally fine. Sure. All right. That's not too bad. Storm of Whispers. Warlock can take that. Enemies hit by its shooting attacks must take a battle shock check. Who gives a shit? No one cares about those enhancements. Borrowed Vigor. An Archon gains +2 attacks. Pretty solid. Or Morbid Might. A Succubus gains wound rerolls. Which is good because their weapons are usually not that good to begin with. So getting wound rerolls is solid. So we're trying to buff our Drukhari stuff, basically, which is okay. Stratagems. Pall of Dread. This is the World Eater's Obsec, where you Obsec an objective when you die. So a Ynnari unit from your army that was just destroyed and was in range of an objective marker you controlled at the end of the previous phase, you select one of those objective markers and you control it until your opponent takes it. So, like, our striking scorpions that in our previous example have run up to score area denial. Our opponent goes, hey, I'm going to shoot those guys. And you go, great, they're dead. I'm going to move, and I'm going to obsec the objective. Pretty cool. This is a good stratagem to have in the worst of times. Macabre Resilience. You can be -1 to wound on a Ynnari infantry or mounted unit. Pretty solid to keep your guys alive, so you can use like the fight first thing. It is shooting phase or fight phase. Emissaries of Ynnead. You gain a reroll hit rolls of 1 on an infantry unit in the fight phase only. If you are below starting strength, you can reroll hit rolls instead. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say about that. The reroll hit roll is good. Reroll hit rolls of 1 especially good for like our aspect warrior stuff that's like running in and doing some damage. I guess it's like infantry only, so we can't use it on like shining spears, which is good, I guess. But we can use it on like howling banshees, pretty solid. Parting the Veil. Use it in the fight phase after your enemy unit has selected its targets. You get a fight on death. Each time a model in your unit is destroyed, If the model has not fought this phase before removing it from play, the destroyed model can fight. So Final Death also pretty good. It is 2 CP. It's an automatic Final Death. You don't have to roll for it, but it is 2 CP, so it's expensive. And we, I don't believe, can take Eldrad in this detachment. So I believe that we are restricted from getting CP regen at all, besides just tactical objective stuff. Or Autarchs for Rites of Battle. Soul Sight is the next one. In your shooting phase, Ynnari unit has not been selected to shoot, gains lethal hits and ignore cover. Those are good abilities to have. We don't have access to Lhykhis, so getting like enhanced criticals is really difficult, if not impossible. However, our Aspect Warriors will still gain Aspect Shrine tokens, so we can auto-lethal hit some stuff if we want to. Death Answers Death is the last one. I like this one a lot. It's usable at the end of your opponent's shooting phase, so it's another end of shooting phase thing. One Ynnari unit from your army excluding Wraith constructs that lost one or more models, that phase can shoot as if it were your shooting phase. Now, there is a little bit of a weird timing thing, because you have 2 end of shooting phase triggers for your opponent. So the way that this works is that you have to tell your opponent all of your end of phase triggers, and then they will stack them. So you go like, hey, I want to use my Death Answers Death, but I also want to move a unit at the end of your phase if you've attacked me. They can say, hey, move the unit first, and then if you use your Death Answers Death and then move the unit that you were targeting with the strat, you would have to like keep them in line of sight to attack with them. So this is a cool stratagem. It's pretty useful. It's going to be especially good if they like fail to kill a Fire Dragon or something, and the Exarch just shoots their tank with full rerolls. But there's weird idiosyncrasies with it. The important thing though is that oftentimes your opponent is incentivized not to fully kill your units because you'll trigger a free moves off of them. So you will get a lot of opportunities to use this, which is like means that it's kind of a cool. I don't know. It has. It gives your opponent this catch-22 where I give you the option between moving stuff or killing you, or killing you and moving stuff, or not killing you and letting you shoot them, which is kind of sweet. Reroll hits when you get overwatched. Yeah, I guess that's true. I think I would assume that your opponent's trying to kill you in the Overwatch, so we'll see. All right, let's talk about datasheets. Ynnari datasheets, chat. Not these ones. We're back to the Codex. Come back, Codex. So the important thing is that we have to bring Yvraine or the Incarn. We've already talked about their datasheets when they got previewed originally, but we will give a brief rundown of them momentarily here. Importantly, both of them have this clause, Servant of the Whispering God, or I guess also Avatar of the Whispering God. It's different depending on which of the two that we pick. This says you cannot include non-Ynnari epic heroes. I believe that it's a little bit of a funky thing where, like, as your Yanni units gain Ynnari, and this is excluding Ynnari, so it's like a question of whether or not you could include epic heroes that then become Ynnari. I imagine that the intention is that you can't, because otherwise this clause wouldn't do anything. So, I guess realistically, you can't take Phoenix Lords and you can't take like Eldrad, and that's important to keep in mind. I imagine is the intention there. Otherwise, I don't know why they would print that. I guess it also has the reverse, right? If you include epic heroes, you can't include the Yvraine or whatever. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can't take Phoenix Lords and you can't take Farseers or Eldrad and stuff. The Vicearch is the other guy. He's the melee dude. He gives you fight first on your unit, so you don't have to choose them for the Ynnari fight first. Importantly, also, they don't need to be like below starting strength. He gives other characters a 4+ feel no pain while he's leading the unit. A little weird because that it really only works on precision. He doesn't like attach into them and become an attached character. He becomes a separate unit with the leader, so it's a little strange. And he's, I don't know, he's good at fighting. He's got an anti-epic hero 2+, AP 4, 3 damage melee attack, or most of the time he's attacking 6 times strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage. You can join into Void Reavers, Void Scarred, Guardian Defenders, Storm Guardians, Incubi, Kabalite Warriors, or Witches. Interestingly, I guess he can also just go into a Falcon by himself and then get wound rerolls at Devastating. So, like, maybe we just play him in a Falcon and do Falcon stuff. I don't know. That doesn't seem very good, but we could do it. The Incarn teleports around in your opponent's turns. If you destroyed Eldar units from your army, it can bounce to where the Eldar unit was destroyed. Pretty useful, but definitely less flexible than the original like Index version, where he could teleport anytime, wherever, and do anything he wanted all the time. But I believe that what you could do, for example, is like have your opponent kill a unit, teleport the Incarn there, and then choose the Incarn to move. As a result of the detachment ability, which is like kind of wild. So there's like a lot of weird flexibility you can do with him. You can like move onto an objective and then move out of charge range, for example, of the enemies that were there. So you retain control of the objective and blank their charge. Like, I don't know. Weird stuff you can do with that guy. I don't think there's any clause that says you can't do that, although it is a fuzzy data sheet, so if I missed it, then that would... I might have missed it. Can you take the Harlequin Epic Hero? Can you take Solitaires, I guess? I think no, it looks like the answer is. Oh, he's at the beginning. You cannot take Solitaires. You can take the other Harlequin stuff. You're just restricted to one of the other characters. But the Solitaire, he precludes being brought into Ynnari Detachment. Yvrain. Yvrain jumps into Void Scarred, Void Reavers, Guardian Defenders, Storm Guardians, Incubi, Kabalite Warriors, Witches. She regenerates D3+1 destroyed bodyguard models to the unit. Importantly, Incubi have their like Exarch guy, the Clavex, and you can regenerate him back into the unit. So you can regen. I think you can also, if she's in Guardians, you can regen the weapon platform back. So you can regen multi-wound models with her. She just can't regen support weapon platforms, but she can regen the heavy weapon platform into bigger units. So like this is actually kind of a solid ability. She also has the -1 to wound strat inside the Ynnari detachment, so she can be hard to kill, and you can fade away the units because all the Ynnari stuff has battle focus. So I think it's actually pretty reasonable that you will gain bodyguard models back with her ability. On top of that, we talked about her ability yesterday, or the last stream we did. Start of the fight phase, she selects an enemy unit within engagement range, and you get wound rerolls against it in melee. Really good. Really, really, really good ability. Her inside, like, Incubi or something is going to be super dumb. I'm really glad she doesn't join Harlequin Troupes, because that would make me tear my hair out, but... we can put her in with, like, the Vice Arc, right? Because we can dual attach him, and then she will give him wound rerolls with his Devastating weapon, and she also has Devastating. So very, like, at the very least, you could have 2 characters and some other models, and you have 10, I believe 10, right? He has 11, excuse me. 11 Devastating wounds attacks with rerolls. And potentially hit rerolls, too. You can give him hit rerolls of 1 as well. Just for a CP. Yuck! Yucky! And she is an anti-infantry 2 devastating psychic weapon with blast. Oh, no, no blast. Just D6 plus 3 shots. But it is anti-infantry 2 devastating, so she's like, here's 5 mortal wounds to you to kill your screen, and then we charge you. I give myself wound rerolls. Here are, like, 10 mortal wounds. That seems good, right? I feel like that's good. I'm no expert, but I feel like that's pretty solid. This feels like Devastating Wounds plus rerolls the faction. I'll be real with you, chat. We also have Drukhari datasheets. So, importantly, we can no longer take Drukhari datasheets out of the Drukhari index. That's gone. Forget about it. We can't take Scourges. We can't take any of the other stuff. You can only take the Ynnari versions of the Drukhari datasheets, which are, I believe, exactly identical to the Drukhari version, except that these ones have battle focus. So they are much better. So we have Ynnari Witches. They have, like, make you take Vesper Escapes when you fall back, which nobody cares about. We have Reavers, which do mortal wounds when they fly over you, and are really good utility. And then we have Incubi, who are strength 4 melee beat sticks that make you take a battle shock check. But realistically, they're going to get wound rerolls because we're going to put wound reroll person inside them. They're going to slap really hard. They'll have grenade now. Oh, the witches do? Oh, the Kabbalite warriors do? Do they? No. Kabbalite warriors don't have grenade. Unless they take a Phantasm Grenade. Can you return Bodyguard while not on the battlefield, i.e. in a transport? That's a good question. I don't believe so, but there is a rules commentary that says that you can return models. Oh, no, it doesn't because... I'm actually not sure. I don't believe that you can, but that might be a rules commentary thing. I know that there's a rules commentary that says you can return models while you're in reserve. I don't know where that ruling is, though. I would assume that we can't. But I'm not going to search the entire document for it right now. It is a little bit weird because the transport rules say that you can't do anything. It's a question of whether or not... returning D3+1 destroyed bodyguard models is Yvrain doing a thing. It is not an activated ability, so I think generally speaking it's not considered to be. But I don't know if you can do so when you're not in reserve is the question. So I'm sure someone can look that up. All right. The Ynnari Archon, he gives you wound rerolls just sort of baked in. So you get wound rerolls of 1 while you're leading a unit. Previously, you have to empower him to get wound rerolls out of his unit. But now if you're below starting strength, you get wound rerolls with them. So he's just another really good access to wound rerolls. Plus, we can also take the enhancement for extra attacks. So he can swing up to 7 anti-infantry attacks with his Husk Blade, which is really fucking wild. He also gets you CP cost reduction. He has Rites of Battle now. So they're like Autarchs. They're like Autarchs, but for Incubi. That's pretty good. His rerolls also, just like the Drukhari version, they work on ranged attacks too. So he can make your Kabbalite warriors reroll wounds when they've taken some casualties, which is really good. The Ynnari Succubus gives sustained hits 1. Start of the fight phase, if you're below starting strength, you gain fight first, which you could already do thanks to the detachment ability, so that's a little bit weird. She also has 6 attacks, anti-infantry 3, and you can give her the enhancement for reroll wounds, but it's only 6 attacks at 1 damage, which is not actually that exciting. I don't know if anybody... I think we're still not that excited about Succubi, probably. But at least in the Drukhari Codex, she's like 50 points, because she's like basically worthless. So maybe she'll be really cheap. Kabbalite Warriors get objectives secured, even if they are in transports, just like they do in Drukhari. And then we have Raiders and stuff. Ynnari Raiders can transport the Vice Arc, Archons, Succubi, Kabbalite Warriors, Incubi, Witches, and Yvrain. So we could put, like... 5 incubi with 2 attached characters maybe into them, but then they might die. So it's a little bit tough to get the 2 characters attached into a unit and in a transport at the same time. They also have battle focus though, so they're base move 14 and can advance auto 6, and we can also improve that with Swift as the Wind. So they can go 22 inches in a turn, which is kind of rad. And then the Ynnari Venom end of the fight phase allows Ynnari infantry to run back inside it. And it can split warriors or witches just like it can into combat squads like in the Drukhari faction. So it gets 6 models out of Visearch, Archon, Incubi, Cabinet Warrior, Succubus, Witches, and Yvraine inside it as well. Just like Drukhari ones. Like I said, mostly Drukhari datasheets, but we also have battle focus on them. And the characters are different. But we don't have any access to any other Drukhari units. So nothing else out of Drukhari is available, only this stuff. Hypercrypt has a stratagem that allows reanimation in strat reserve because reanimation protocols explicitly says that they don't activate if you're not on the battlefield. That's why the stratagem is important in Drukhari. The reason that they made the change that you can regenerate into while in reserve is because of originally it was Grey Knight Terminators would reanimate. They would previously not get the benefit of attaching an apothecary into their unit if they teleport assaulted, because they would go into reserve, skip the phase at which they could return models into the unit, and then return. And so they would just not get any benefit from that guy. And they added a clause for that guy. And then I think it also started affecting Genestealer cults. I believe Genestealer cults can do it now too. While they're in reserve specifically though. But I don't know if there's like an exception in there for transports. I have no idea. Just leave her at home and then you can bring Phoenix Lords. Not in Ynnari though. There is no way to bring Phoenix Lords in Ynnari because Yvraine explicitly just prevents it, and Ynnari requires Yvraine or the Incarn, which also has the same rule. So there's just no way to do it. It's just impossible.
Drew Lytle donated $2 through Super Chat. Is Reaper's Wager Detachment better or worse now?
Oh, that's a great question. I hadn't even considered Reaper's Wager, chat. I don't know. What are... I think it's better. We'll see how expensive these Harlequin units are. But, like, the Harlequins just got their numbers went up, right? Number go up. Line go up. Number bigger. Better datasheet. What we're missing, I think, is... I don't know if we have... does Reaper's Wager have rules to include Harlequins? That was in the Eldar thing, right? So I don't know what the rules to include Harlequins are in the new rule set now are. So it probably requires an update. Oh, you can include Harlequins up to 1,000. Just kidding. It's in the Reaper's Wager. The Reaper's Wager ability. It does reference the index, but I imagine that gets updated to the Codex. If they can take the Codex versions, which I assume that they will be able to do, I think they look great. Voidweavers are phenomenal. Harlequins start with the Wager. They start losing. So getting good ranged attacks is good. Skyweavers are good early. Their melee profile got better, so they're just better as like a first assault unit. And Voidweavers also got better because they have their lone op thing now. And then Harlequin Troupes are just like really good melee units. So The only thing that got worse, I think, is the Death Jester. So like, I feel like it's pretty good. Yeah, and you can like scout 9 a bunch of Harlequin Troupes in your opponent's face. Like it seems pretty solid. They don't have like wound rerolls anywhere, which is a little bit sad. I guess they wound reroll. They reroll 1s to wound if they're losing the wager. So like, troops can get reroll hit and wound rerolls of 1 and +1 to wound all together, or get hit rerolls and get -1 to be hit, which is good. So like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels much better actually. We'll see what the points values look like, but yeah, I don't know. Harlequins are just better now, so it seems okay. You can only take one of the characters. Yeah, I don't know how many times you're like, hey, I'm going to spam a bunch of Death Jesters, though. I don't think you took more than one of those guys anyway. And the Solitary, you could only take one of regardless. So that's not new. Yeah, the Votann, like, FAQ is super weird, chat. I don't know if I would, like, super, like, read too hard into it. The Votann FAQ has a bunch of specifically Votann rulings that like are explicitly contradicted by other by the core rules for other interactions. So I don't know. That's just weird. It's just weird for Votann. Votann are like the redheaded stepchildren of the edition right now. Like GW just decided that their abilities should work a different way than everyone else's do, which is like bizarre. Yeah, Death Jester lost devastating though, which is the sad part. Anyway, chat. There are some other datasheets that we can discuss. We talked about all of the big stuff. We talked about all of the individual sort of like unit archetypes when we talked about their individual detachments. We haven't talked about the general things. Wraith Knights look kind of neat. If you take a Wraith Knight with the shield... So Wraith Knights gain the new super heavy walker rule, so they can go through walls. But they might battle shock themselves. If their damage reduction is tied to their shield, which also gives them a 4+ invulnerable save. So if you are taking the damage reduction version, then they're much harder to kill, but they only get 1 gun, which is a little sad. However, they get reroll attack dice volume when they're targeting an enemy within half range. So if you're taking the Sun Cannon, 24 inches, which might be the build now, versus the dual Wraith Cannon, because the dual Wraith Cannon, Wraith Knight, is like really easy to kill. The Ghost Glaive Wraith Knight is kind of neat because he can move over terrain features and over enemy models, full stop. Or within engagement range, as long as he doesn't end. So he doesn't have to roll to Battle Shock, he just goes over things. He, like, acrobatics over them. He also has a Scatter Shield. I guess he could take a sword and a gun if he loses the Scatter Shield, but then he loses the damage reduction, so it's like, I don't know. And he's swinging for, like, Strength 18, AP 3, 6 damage as well, which is, like, neat. I don't know. It feels he's probably going to be too expensive for what he does, but the ability to just move over walls is, like, kind of cool for these guys. They also have Battle Focus, even though a lot of their, like, built in. They don't need a Psyker to do it, like you do in the Wraith Construct Detachment. But a lot of the really good ones say non-Titanic. I think the reactive moves all say non-Titanic, but you can Swift as the Wind Him, you can prevent Overwatch, and you can 6 in Pilot and Consolidate, but the last 2 are non-Titanic, yeah. So you can move him 14 inches over walls. That's actually like kind of a pretty reasonable threat range. I don't know. It seems not too bad. Rangers, I don't think changed at all. they're just Rangers. I don't know. Shroud Runners now strip cover from you instead of granting lethal hits, which is probably significantly less toxic. But also, between Shroud Runners and Warwalkers, we can do like the full Astra Militarum wombo combo where you're +1 AP ignore cover against a target, and then like one random thing kills you, which is really good. So I like these guys. Shroud Runners seem great. They're also still 9-inch scouts, which is awesome. They do have to shoot you with their rifle, though, which is a little bit sad. So there's a failure mode if they just like roll really bad. Although it's probably 2 to 3 attacks hitting on 2s, which is like fine. Vipers give you -1 to be hit when they suppress you. It is until the start of your next turn, so even if you kill the Viper and the Crackback, you still get -1 to be hit. But I don't know how excited you are about taking Vipers without an offensive buff from them. We talked about all the support weapon platforms and all these guys. I didn't really look at the airplanes, but they seem airplaney. Hemlock Wraith Fighters give you -1 to battle shock checks. Wow. What a time to be alive. Crimson Hunters are good at shooting flying stuff. It's okay. And then big tanks. The Night Spinner we already talked about in our discussion previously. It gives you -2 to move and -2 to charge, which is really, really strong, but it lost devastating wounds on its gun for an AP value. Doesn't really matter, but is still not terrible. The Fire Prism still has its 2-shot, 6-damage gun. However, when it linked fires, the second Fire Prism only shoots 1 attack. So you can no longer linked fire the entire fire like prism cannon shot. Like all the whole way. Which is probably for the best. I think it was maybe too good to like fire every single fire prism from a single point on the battlefield. But you still get a floating hit reroll 1 hit and 1 wound. So it's still good stuff, but a lot worse than they were previously. Real talk. If it's not a Falcon, I don't care. Void Reavers, I don't believe have changed either. They get hit rerolls against enemies on objectives. Void Scarred, I think, are also the same. They choose a unit from their opponent's army. These guys all scout, which are great. They get lethal hits and precision when targeting that unit, which is pretty good. The Void Reavers seem pretty good just for a scouting unit, but we'll see what the cost is, because they may just be supplanted by Striking Scorpions. We'll see. They feel like they're like fighting Striking Scorpions and Rangers for their unit archetype, and I don't know who we're more excited about taking. And that is, I believe, the Eldar Codex, chat. You can take 2 Wraith Knights and 2 Wraith Knights with Ghost Glaives. I believe that you can Wraith Knight. You could take 6 Wraith Knights. Is how it goes. We can just take all the Wraith Knights. 6 Wraith Knights, chat. If we have enough points, I guess. They're probably too expensive, yeah. Do Harlequin bikes benefit from the Windhost Detachment? I don't believe so. I believe that all of the Windrider host says Asuryani mounted, and the Harlequins are Harlequin mounted. So they are different. Buzzing, gonna try Wraith Knights out? Yeah, fast moving, going through walls, kind of sweet, dude. I don't know. Awkwardly, I don't know if they have like a ton of synergy with the Wraith Detachment, because a lot of their stuff says non-Titanic. Like, you can give them devastating wounds, I guess, but you're already like strength 18, AP 4. Like, it's good into invuln saves, I suppose. But a lot of their stuff is non-Titanic stuff, which is a little weird. I don't know. They were really worried about the Wraith Knights being too good, I guess. There are no points values in the Codex. There are points values in the Codex, but those are almost always out of date. Once the Munitorum Field Manual gets updated, it is likely we will see different points values for most of this Codex, so it's not really worth talking about right now. How mandatory do I think the Avatar is in Aspect Host? I think you could take it or leave it. I don't think he's mandatory. I think, and if he costs the same as the current Avatar, he might not be worth taking. The Avatar did get significantly worse because he had a particularly powerful interaction with Fate dice. So losing access to that, I almost said losing aspects to that. Losing access to that is a big loss for him. +1 to advance and charge is pretty good though if you're playing melee aspects. I mean, it's +2 threat range to Howling Banshees. So Howling Banshees with Jain move. Well, I guess they don't actually get +1 advance in that case, but they do move 17 inches, which is okay. And he himself can be relatively fast. And reroll hits is good on him too. But I don't know. He doesn't feel particularly necessary to me. Unless he's cheap. Unless he's relatively cheap, big late game anchor, and then he's probably good. No, we brushed over the Wave Serpent. Wave Serpent's in the back over here. It has transhuman, so if your strength is higher than its toughness, it's -1 to be wounded, and it can transport 12 models. That's it. That's all it's got going on. It's just a little transport tank. It is dedicated, so we can take 6 of them. In that weird, Eldar SKU list from World Championships, which I don't think did very well. Did I say Shining Spirits can go through walls? I did say that. And you know what, chat? I fucking meant it. Look at this data sheet, chat. It's so strong. Look at this thing. Oh my god. Oh my god, look at that. You can move. You ignore any vertical distance when determining how you move. And so they fly, so they through the air movement. So you go, I'm going to go over the wall and then down, but you don't care about the up and the down. You only care about the across. So they just go, zoop. They move like aircraft, kind of. They just move straight through. Which is really good. That's really good for a unit that moves 1 trillion inches and hits really hard. Pretty solid. Indeed. Oh my. And you can even be +2 movement and maybe even ignore unable to be overwatched. And you could, in Windrider Host, you could advance and charge. So you could move 22 inches and then charge. Pretty good. That's pretty good rules. Those are good rules. All those are rules that are good. How do some of the enhancements work in Spirit Conclave if Spirit Seers don't have leader? They just work on the Spirit Seer. So higher duty just means that the Spirit Seer gets to move in response. So your Spirit Seers are lone operative most of the time. So if your opponent moves up and gets too close in order to shoot the Spirit Seer or to charge shoot him and then charge the Wraiths, he just leaves and runs outside 12 inches. Is I think the intended play pattern. But it doesn't affect the Wraiths, obviously. It's just him. He's running around to keep himself alive. Shining Sphere's got old flyback? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Bearer's unit, in this case for independent model, Bearer's unit and Bearer are synonymous. He is his own unit of guys, so it just works on him. There's I don't know. There's a weird universe where it's future-proofing for a Spirit Seer that could join a unit, or it could have been written before Spirit Seers became independent characters. But in any case, it only affects the Spirit Seer. Took them 2 years of 10th edition to figure out mounted units exist. That's true. They forgot when they made the pivot update. I think they still forgot. I think that Demon Chariots still get an 8-inch charge at a deep strike. I believe that's the case. Hilarious. At least the Eldar mounted stuff is on round bases, so their pivoting doesn't matter. But it is funny. Feel like the Troop Master isn't worth it unless it's in really big squads. I think it's the opposite. So they don't, to be clear, I don't believe the Troop Master can go through models with his Consolidate, right? I think, like, if you could, it would be wild. But their ability doesn't let them go through models, and their detachment rule only says that they charge through models. So piling in and consolidating, they don't go through models. They still have to go around enemies. I think it's extra good on big units, but also I think the Troop Master himself, I mean, based on his cost, you know, who knows how expensive he is. But I think the Troop Master himself is probably going to be worth it just for punching people. If he's a cheap dude who has 6 2-damage devastating attacks, he's going to be worth it almost regardless. But if he's like, you know, 85 points or 90 points or whatever, you're like, I don't know, maybe 1. If we're like building out a devastating wound wombo combo or whatever. Yeah, there's some like proofreading stuff, but none of it. Besides maybe the Falcon like transport capacity thing, which to be fair I think is maybe fine. None of it like breaks anything, I don't believe. You know, like there are no aircraft infantry in the faction, so the fact that the ability doesn't work on aircraft infantry doesn't matter. It's just like, it is funny. You can see the playtesting process happen. Like you can identify the points at which they changed abilities and stuff. I don't think that, I mean, there might be some like weird corner cases where things get like ruined, but I don't think that anything is like egregious like that. Have we heard how good or bad the Imperial Guard Codex is? No results to my knowledge. I don't believe that. Most events I don't think are using it yet. I don't remember. I don't know the release status, but we'll see once the next like round of GTs gets tabulated this weekend. So we'll see. I don't know. But anyway, chats. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up over here. See a lot of people saying Eldar is super OP broken in this codex, but you're just not seeing it. So part of it is that it's points value oriented, right? Like all of this stuff, I would say, like it's the numbers on the data sheets are in terms of movement characteristics and damage output are above rate for what we've seen in 10th edition so far, right? Like this army, just on the face value, the units in this army are doing more damage than equivalent units in other factions. And they're faster and they're better at getting into melee, or like into position, right? And they have more interaction and reactive effects on your turn. However, if they are more expensive than your units, then that's fine. If they are super cheap and they're just spamming a bunch of very high efficiency units at you, it's going to be really broken. And I agree with that. So I think we have to wait and see. I think the other thing is that like a lot of the really OP stuff is like, I don't know. It's like wombo. It's like combos. Like we're wombo comboing out. Like fire dragons can find ways to get like, you know, the old Eradicator combo. If you work with a couple pieces put together, you know, we talked about Asurmen, and Asurmen's like once per game, just like fucking dumpster something. With alongside Dire Avengers. Although he's like, in any non-Ynnari detachment, he feels like an auto-include, which does feel maybe a little bit too strong. We'll see. His unit seems like it's probably too good. But I don't know. If it's really expensive, then it's fine. So, like, a lot of it requires some moving parts, which is probably going to reduce its efficiency. The only things that are like really, I don't know. There's some stuff that's like right off the bat. I think Shining Spears and maybe Fire Dragons are the one thing where you're just like, those are just they're like a point and click adventure game where they go just do something really powerful and blow something up. And for those, the cost is going to be a big deal. A lot of the other things have moving parts that requires you to do some legwork before they get really disgusting. So we'll see how it goes. Eldar good into Space Marines? Yeah. Eldar have also traditionally had, like, high AP shooting, right? Like, they tend to be, like, there's just, like, AP2 and AP3 everywhere, and, that tends to be very, like, the silver bullet to Marines, too. They stab you right in the neck, so your army doesn't do anything. The T3 glass cannon life. Hell yeah. For sure. The one thing I am a little bit worried about is maybe Ynnari. I don't know. It feels like Ynnari, like, you know, there's like the Liam Vissels of the world are gonna pick that faction up and like really just run circles around people, and you're gonna get put into these positions where you have like no good option, because either he beats you on primary or you give his army a free round of movement basically, and you're just like, okay. And I think that has the capacity to be really super dumb. And also there's just like really good units in it, right? Like your Rainfront plus the Vice Arc is like, hey, we'll just kill something. What's that? You need a thing killed? We'll kill it. It's fine. We full hit and wound reroll with 10 devastating wound attacks and an entire Incubi unit. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. You're gonna get got. And that sounds scary. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, the tools are wild for sure. It's coming for you. What are you gonna do? Save against it? Get out of here. You don't get saves. No saves here, sir. We don't do that here. This is devastating wound territory now. Imagine these two against like infantry. They're like, I got my Terminators. I'm ready to go. And your brain's like kills 2 of them with a gun and then charges, and then you're like hand your opponent like whatever. I don't know. Fucking like 6 sets of devastating, like 3 more dudes die to just mortals, and then you're also taking like 5 more saves, so you lose like 2 more to regular regular damage, and then the Incubi attack, and you're like, oh, okay. It's 2 epic heroes though, so like I don't know. Maybe it's too expensive, but even just like 5 models with the capacity to just vaporize something is going to be a big deal. Once per game, kill a thing. Seems good. Yeah, question is delivery. Yeah, I wonder if it's oftentimes just like Vice Arc and you brain in 5 guys in a Raider. Although Raiders are like sometimes hard to hide. Hard to hide. But I guess if you don't get shot out of like coming out of the Raider, even if you take casualties from disembarking, your brain heals them. So it's actually like kind of sick. It's too bad you can't dual attach the Vice Arc with an Archon. That would be the other cool thing. That would be sweet. But he only double attaches with your brain. He feels like he's supposed to be. It's like a very natural place for him to live. I guess he could also just bring him, and you don't necessarily need to dual attach him. He could just be running around. He just needs to be in the same combat as Yvraine to get like all of the buffs. But Yvraine's ability is not a leadership ability. It doesn't actually matter if... Like, it doesn't matter if the Vice Arc is in the same unit as her. She gives rerolls for everybody. She's an equal opportunity reroller. The Incarn can't be with the Avatar. It's sad. We don't get the cool dual Avatar build. I liked that list back in the day. But that was only because that, like, you took less, like, super dumb, like, Wraith Knights or whatever. Anyway, chat. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up there. Seems like we have discussed the entirety of the Codex. Overall, I think this Codex is cool. I think it's cool as fuck. I think there's definitely some really, really super duper powerful stuff in here. It has the capacity to be like game-endingly stupid, but only if the points are not correct. If Ynnari gets 1 trillion reactive moves because you have 1 million guys running everywhere, that's going to be really dumb. But if Ynnari has like 4 units, then it doesn't matter so much. They just get a lot of really good optionality, but they have to use their units perfectly, which is kind of the Eldar ideal. So my hope is that they do not they swing high on points rather than try to lowball it and make the faction super dumb. I'm crossing my fingers for that. But otherwise, I'm excited for it. I think there's a lot of really cool builds in here, and I think there's a lot of really like cool combos you can build, and there's a bunch of devastating wounds. And listen, as a Chad mortal wound enjoyer, I love devastating wounds, and I will hand my opponent so many devastating wounds you don't even know. You don't even know. It's crazy. Which is cool, which I'm excited about. So anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens when Emperor's Children come out, too. Yeah, who knows? That faction sounds like it's going to be a wild ride, too. I'm going to hop off. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today. I will see you on Monday. I'm going to live stream some stuff. I got a game scheduled Monday over on the Twitch channel. We are also doing... we're going to do a Monday Mayhem and talk about some event results. So I'll see you over there. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today. And enjoy being an Eldar player, if you are one. And keep it classy, folks. Cheers.